live? Hopefully we are. Welcome to Deadline Day with us here at the Green and White podcast, brought to you by Argyle Live. Thank you for joining us to share the joys, the anxiety, hopefully not too much pain to come over the last couple hours until the transfer window, what do they say, slams shut? Maybe inexorably shut would be a better description. The perceptive among you will notice that I am neither Aaron nor Joe. Unfortunately, like our midfield, once the first team are out, the quality, the options drop off dramatically. So you're stuck with me. However, Aaron did pass a late fitness test, so he will be here for the second half to guide you through that dramatic closure of the window. We've got a smattering of reverential or reverent guests among us, to my respected voices in the Argyle world, and a selection of the usual chancers and blaggers as well. So one of those blaggers, top right-hand corner, it's the brains and the fingers of the Argyle Life Transfer Centre. Adam Price, how you doing?
Yeah, very well for now. There's 2.5 hours to go. Anything can happen, but right now, I think I'm all right.
Good. For many Argyle fans, the voice of Argyle on BBC Radio Devon. Not only do we have his dulcet tones, but his beautiful visage too. It's Drew.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I've been up since 6 a.m. this morning. I was on the early shift at work, so I'll see how long I last. But so tell you what, this is it's a fairly new experience for me as an Argyle fan. This because usually we're not that involved in transfer deadline day. We don't have anyone that anybody wants, and we don't have any money to spend on anybody. So it's almost new ground, really, isn't it?
It is. It's quite exciting, isn't it? Let's make hay while the sun shines, because it might not last forever. And finally, it's a blast from the past. No school like the old school. Nick Saunders-Smith joins us, known to many of you in his latest incarnation as the Argyle analyst and his wonderful long threads on Twitter. How you doing, Nick?
I'm good. I just want let's just get the announcement so that we have our Azaz replacement finally done. That's all I care about right now. That's what I just want. But
yeah. I think many fans will echo that. Let's get that over the line. We've kept Morgan Whitaker. It could have gone a lot worse. However, there's still time for things to go a lot worse. And as Argyle fans, that's always what we expect, isn't it? So before we get on to the main headlines, and there have been a few today, we did play one game since the pod has last recorded, and that was at Watford. There's not too many, I don't want to dwell on it too long, but we did see the introduction of Mr. Grimshaw between the sticks, who had a varied performance. Anybody want to, Adam, how about you? You did a few statistical analyses of him in your What to Expect piece. Did you watch the game? Do you want to talk us through not just Grimshaw, but anything else from that?
Yeah, I shall. I mean, it's not an ideal sign, I guess, when you go through a game, you lose 2-0, rounding outplayed, and your goalkeeper is still the man of the match. It's an even worse sign when your goalkeeper is still the man of the match, despite the fact he's dropped a clanger for the first goal. So, not terrific for the performance, but appreciate the comments coming in. Yes, I have dressed for the occasion. Clearly, Ben, you must feel underdressed right now next to me. But I looked at that game in isolation and considered it, well, do I particularly care? Not really. One, because it's obviously a cup we were never going to win. And two, both sides made a number of changes. I think we made 9. I'm sure I'll be corrected if I'm wrong. I think we have 9 changes on that one. And to go forward, it wasn't terrific by any stretch of the imagination. It was far from terrific. 2-0 certainly flattered us. But I'd like to think, perhaps with an optimistic hat on, that sort of thing doesn't reflect who we usually are week on, week out, and particularly at home. I'd like to think that we'd be able to put in something a darn sight better than that. Now, in terms of the individuals, you mentioned Grimshaw. I will bring it up again. I felt for him a lot when that first went. It's the worst possible start right in front of that away end to let that one go through his legs. He should save it. It is clear. I think we've seen bigger clangers, but he should save it. There's no question. But ultimately, he very much grew into the game. Not only has he made some excellent saves, I was always impressed with the way that he came off his line. I think a couple of occasions I can remember to deal with some of those long balls in behind. So I'm encouraged. I think based on the league performance, I'd be surprised if he started tomorrow, unless Rooney very much does have his number one and he does come straight in, then I guess that's fair enough. It's I think based on what he did in the league last week, it would be a little harsh to drop Hazard, I think, for tomorrow's game. But Grimshaw, overall, despite everything that happened in the first 15 minutes, impressed, and that's all you can ask for on a debut. Around the side, I think my main concern, if you want to call it that, is that we played Callum Wright in that number 10 position. Aside from Whitaker, he probably is our most natural and best number 10 on the books. And I'm not sure I'd want to play Whitaker there anyway, considering what you lose from the flank, but it's an option. But Callum Wright is probably the best specialist you have in that position, if you like. And he really, I can describe it, he didn't seem with it. He didn't seem to developed those connections with his teammates. There are a few he shot, for example, when he should have squared it to Obafemi. There are a few options where there was one, I think, in the second half where he's got it on the right, and it's almost like he's taken too long, tried to pick someone out, and then it almost looked like he didn't try to pick someone out. It just gave the ball back. It was a really poor performance, in my opinion, and I guess on the flip side of that, what it did do is demonstrate just how much we do need that number 10 to come in, particularly in this system, to be effective. And fingers crossed, touch wood, whatever you want to do. It sounds like we might have that coming in a little later on. Surely announced live while we're on air, if all goes well, with Rami Al-Hajj. So that's a little too late for tomorrow, but it's encouraging that we might finally, after what seems like an age, be signing an attacking midfielder. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed for that. It was clear from Tuesday night, and I know I'm rambling on Tuesday night after you said we don't want to spend too long on it. I apologise, but it's just that one thing, isn't it, that if that game did anything, I know we made the 9 changes, I know it's something I said I didn't particularly care about, it demonstrated, as a lot of fixtures have this season, how desperately lacking in creativity we have been. And hopefully that gets fixed very soon.
Yeah, that was the point I was thinking of, that the game highlighted was the need for that final pass or ball that navigated through the defence to split the lines. Nick, you were suggesting that it looks like we have someone who can do that. I know you had a look at some of the stats. You tweeted some very encouraging figures. Do you want to talk us through anything you thought was promising about Al-Hajj, who seems imminently to put out a video on the official Twitter account, hopefully, while we are broadcasting? We get to try and use the flashing graphic.
I hope we see that soon. I'm hoping we see it very soon. It's not fun when you're spending all day waiting for it, just constantly refreshing Twitter. My thumbs are starting to ache a little bit. Yeah, so he a bit like, are we pronouncing it Beidou? I know we're not signing him now, but Beidou. I'm not 100% how I pronounce it now.
Beidou.
Yeah, the pair of them obviously come from a foreign league. There's less access to not necessarily to data, but to clips and so forth. You are quite reliant on highlights reels, so they can be a bit misleading. But the tweet I actually put out was also slightly misleading because FootMob has a weird way it does its league level data, so it's slightly wrong. But I think in last season, so his club were relegated from the top flight in Denmark last season. But last season, when he played with them, which just closed prior to this summer, he recorded the most dribbles in the league. He was second for chances created. Off the top of my head, 7th for big chances created and 8th for assists. And when we're talking about a team that got relegated, you're assuming that's a team that's lower on quality. This is, again, the downside of being a foreign league. You have those sort of blind spots and you're making a bit more of a leap. I'm sure the club are a lot more informed. I certainly hope they are a lot more informed about the player than we are. But you assume that there's maybe a drop-off in quality among the strikers or other midfielders that Al-Hajj is playing with. And therefore, it's impressive to be able to rack up those numbers in a relegated team. As someone else pointed out, it's often there's a bit of stigma about signing a player from a relegated team, particularly in the league you might perceive to be a bit more inferior to yours. I have no idea where the Danish league ranks relative to English football at all. But someone else pointed out that, look at Kieran Lemiras going down in that Argyle team. So we know that their players good enough for League One and above. that's just an example for the sort of people that are a little bit concerned about signing from a relegated team. But at the end of the day, he looks like, based on what we can see, the Azaz replacement, someone who can drop his shoulder.
It's been confirmed. I can't.
Has it happened?
Hello.
Aaron is in the background. Let's check the WhatsApp.
I don't know if that was intentional or not. I can't see anything on the Twitter feed. I've got up. That's why I'm glancing at occasionally.
Maybe he's just teasing us.
No, that was an accident. Apparently,
I think as ever he's premature.
I think if we are going to do something like that, you need something a bit more like the BBC News. The noise that comes with the news bulletin. So you can't just drop a graphic like that. But yeah, what I was saying was he looks a bit like the Azaz, the sort of player who can drop a shoulder, who can turn, who can provide those creative. But there's a short highlights reel that's going around. But if you go on YouTube, there's a longer 8-minute one of his last season. You can see some wonderful passes in there. Whether that translates to Championship football, which is a bit more aggressive, it's all those stereotypes of being higher paced, more aggressive, more physical. Does that impact them? How do they work within the tactical setup as well that Rooney's got? Because he wouldn't be playing as an outright centre attacking mid potentially. We've seen the Bundu's been doing right, been playing more off the right, almost working with Whitaker. So how those things impact, hard to tell. Yeah, that'd be my take.
Yeah, and talking to players who are relegated or almost relegated in our case, Morgan Whitaker, a player who no one would say deserves to be relegated. It's not necessarily a mark of the quality of the opponent. Interestingly, we should hopefully have Alberto Lauciello joining us in about an hour, professional statistician and Argyle fan, and just chatting with him earlier today, he was suggesting that the Danish league is more competitive overall than the Swedish league, so that putting up those figures as compared to Beidou, for example, was actually very impressive from Al Hajj, and in many ways perhaps more promising even than Beidou, despite the fee being small. I won't steal all his thunder. I'll let him tell us. You can hear it from the horse's mouth later. Now, Drew, you get a great view of the team from your vantage point commentating. What's been your feeling that we've needed before the end of this window? And do you feel we've either kept it or seem to be getting it or have got it through the door?
I think it's kind of what everyone else has said, really. I mean, I don't think Bundu is the answer playing centrally. I don't, and from as Adam said, from what we saw on Tuesday night, I don't think Callum Wright is either. So that for me is the area we've got to strengthen. It could be that that young Freddie could play there, but it's asking a lot of a youngster. So for me, that's where someone's got to come in, possibly even two, maybe one, maybe another low knee for a bit of competition in that position as well, unless that's going to be Callum Wright. The goalkeeping situation, again, I think Adam was spot on that. We saw the best and the worst of Grimshaw, didn't we? I didn't half feel for him when that ball went through his legs. I just thought your debut could not possibly go any worse than this. But fair play to him after that point. There were some saves in there that made up for that for me. But and again, it is concerning that 2 games in a row our goalkeeper's been man of the match. To go back to the QPR game, lots of positive signs in that for me. The way the team stuck together, the way the team defended, the way the team played. Because I think, going back even further to the Wednesday 4-0, when a manager or head coach is as critical of the players as Rooney was, sometimes that can go one or two ways. But clearly, everyone that has at least shown that the camp is together. So that's good. But yeah, I think, a couple of attacking midfielders for me. I would like to hope that what Chris Errington reported in the Herald is true, and it's an end of any speculation about Morgan Whitaker. And I think every Argyle fan would say that at this stage. I mean, unless we have somebody lined up ready as a replacement, oven baked, then you can't do it this late. You shouldn't be doing it this late. And as he's under contract for as long as he is, Argyle got the power to hopefully say, well, I'm afraid not, actually. No.
Yeah, I'd agree with you on the playing one player there, getting the one player in is brilliant. And that's brilliant for the first sort of 70, 80 minutes of the game, but you can't always run one attacking midfielder for 90 minutes every game. So it would be nice to have the options, but at least one replacement for Azaz with genuine quality would be better than what we seem to have on the books at the moment. Maybe a defensive midfielder would have been ideal too, but I feel like maybe, I don't know what you guys think about this, that the club have got some maybe more someone like Darko JB, who maybe is a jack of all trades, master of none. He might be filling in those positions and do a serviceable job. What do you think, Adam?
I think that's what will be happening. Whether I think is what should be happening, or whether I think we're going to benefit from having just the options we've got now in a midfield too, I'm not so sure. I mean, this is pre Al Hajj, who's very much looks like a number 10. The squad right now is just not it's not suited, in my view anyway, to that midfield two. I don't think we've got the players there or the all-rounders there to be effective with a midfield two. And JB's kind of a part of that. I think, and look, he's the player who doesn't have very much professional football. He's still got plenty of growing to do, and maybe we'll see that. And I'm not saying there's not potential there. There absolutely is. But I've looked at the way that he's played, and when he's played well, it always seems to be when, yes, he can be deep, but he has that license to push on, and very much I think a 4-3-3 would suit him really well. I think a 4-3-3 with somebody behind him, and him being one of the two ahead who still has that responsibility to press, but he's got space to go into. I think that would be great. It's not going to happen. I know it's wishful thinking on my part, and I'm talking myself into nothing, but that's how I see it with JB. I think this season we are going to use him as one of the particular. If Al Hajj comes in, it would make a lot more sense to drop him back. That's not to say I like it. As I say, I think in an ideal world, I'd very much just like to see another one come in. Possibly, God, I can't think off the top of my head that there's been names who've been linked with, and it's never felt quite right. That all-round central midfielder that we would need to make this very effective just hasn't been there and hasn't been linked yet. Couple hours to go. You never know, but yeah, for me, that's very much the area where we're demonstrably light. And I'm gonna name drop Nick, who's right there in a graphic he's made on Twitter that I did, like, demonstrating how the squad has changed from say the start of the Schumacher era, the way it's gone through, and it's blindingly obvious when you look at it. It's like, we've lost midfielders, we've not gained midfield. What's gone on here? And it remains a gaping hole in many ways. I don't think JB's the player I think is perfect to fill it. He may be eventually if he keeps improving, but I think we're going to have to because that's how it's going to be, as far as I see it anyway.
A quick note with regards to midfield, I'd say, is that the only account that I saw that seemed to know about Obafemi in advance has also then tweeted out tonight that there's Al Hajj is in and there's another person in for medical. Now, the in the know accounts have had, to be honest, an awful transfer window. Pretty much got everything wrong. Sorry, in the know accounts is just has been that way. But I mean, this account the seemingly knew about Obafemi when I don't think I saw anyone else tweet about it. It just came out of nowhere. There's nothing else linked to it. Has got me a little bit optimistic that maybe there's another one coming in, but who knows? Just thought I'd throw that out there. Potentially a little bit.
Nice. It would be very nice. As I say, I think we're kind of all minded. I'm sorry if I'm speaking on behalf of anybody, but I think we're all minded to believe that another midfielder in that deep position would be a position we really need to fill. So that would be nice. Yeah, I'm not going to get too excited on the in-the accounts just yet because, as I say, their record this summer has either been terrible or they've done the classic. I don't know if anybody's got familiar with the meme of Mac from Always Sunny in Philadelphia saying, "I always play both sides, so I always come out on top." Who kind of had accounts like that saying, "This player's going to join, this player's not going to join, this player's going to leave, this player's not going to leave." As soon as one of those happens, oh look, I said this was going to happen, and it's one of these two outcomes. Like, yeah, come on, lads, you know nothing. So I'm going to wait and see. But
they've come up with a worse record than Peter O'Rourke, even though they keep criticising him. Because he at least got one right today in Saxon.
He did, yeah, with the Saxon deal. So he's not had the greatest summer, but he's redeemed himself a little on deadline day, and he's certainly had a much better summer than some of the accounts that people are listening to. I saw one that's come through the the comments about Omar Barber. He wants a shout out and he's going to get one. I don't know who's running that account, but it's certainly not Omar. He's not a journalist. He knows nothing. So that thing earlier about the Beidou's deal's back on, take that with more than a little pinch of salt, I'd say.
I can't remember the flag on the Omar Barber account, but it's I was going to say he's an expert fisherman from whatever that country was, but I can't remember what it was. It'd be wonderful if it was like was it the Yemen, salmon fishing in the Yemen, or he's Jana fishing from Yemen, but I don't think it was a Yemeni flag. Drew, you mentioned that, as reported by friend of the pod Chris Errington, it seems that there's no business going on with Morgan Whitaker, and there have been rumours that he himself nixed any option of moving to Burnley, which is wonderful news for the Green Army. How important do you think that is? Do you think that is the best bit of business Argyle have done? Do you think maybe losing him but compensating with other positions might have been possible? Do you think it was just too late in the window? What's your take on that whole furore and what we've been finally left with?
I think it's too late in the window for Argyle to accept it, unless they've got deals lined up and players ready to come in, which I don't think you can do at this late stage. And also, it's the sort of like, if let's say, pluck a figure out there, if he went for 15 million, and we're suddenly trying to spend 5 million on a replacement, it's maybe an unpopular thing to say, but if we had 5 million to spend, a lot of the players that you could get for 5 million would not want to come to Plymouth Argyle. That's a sad fact of life, and our sort of standing as a lower level championship club at the moment. So, if you were to take a lot of money from Morgan Whitaker, you'd want to be getting 3 or 4 players in off the back of that, and use use that money to really develop the squad, upgrade the squad. So certainly too late in the window to do it now. And if, as rumoured, Burnley, the first 2 offers were, we'll loan him off you and then we'll buy him at the end of the season if we go up. I mean, that is laughable. I mean, F off till I can't see you, F off till I can't hear you, and when you've got there, keep effing off.
The first one was apparently not even an obligation to; it was an option to. If we get promoted, then we have the option to. At least it's an obligation.
Works for everyone, doesn't it?
It does sound bizarre, because that's just an insulting even if it's just opening negotiations, you don't want to offend the other party that much, surely, when you start. So, Nick, what's your opinion? Do you think I saw that? We shared similar opinions that potentially it could have been good if this was sort of offered maybe a few days previous, where you could do something with the money and strengthen the squad all around, maybe get a couple of midfielders in. But it's also good to keep Morgan Whitaker, isn't it? He loves the place and he loves the club, and that's absolutely priceless when you're Plymouth Argyle.
He's undisputedly our best player in my eyes. I don't think anyone really. That's not to disparage other players, but there's a reason we're getting the bids we are for Whitaker and for no one else, and we're not for anyone else. To lose Whitaker and not properly replace them is basically inviting relegation. The only reason right now you would take... So I think I tweeted out that there were sort of 2 considerations. There's basically it's your risk or reward on how much money you want to get, because the worst case scenario is we keep him, we get relegated, his value drops significantly because we have much less... breaking this up.
It's another accident.
Yeah, here we go. Like I've been checking the metadata. I'd love to say that was my thing. That's literally what I tweeted.
Let's get the X.
Yeah,
Oh, it is indeed.
Well, I mean, we've jumped the gun a bit here. Do we know it's...
Well, no, it's Plymouth Argyle. I've got a new signing JPEG image on the 1 minute ago.
Yeah, but it doesn't say who it is. Aaron's assuming it's Hajj.
It doesn't, but it's breaking news. There is a confirmed signing. He's now going to have to wait and show us have to locate. Or will I have to locate? Let me. I'm such a Luddite.
Aaron's just eating his dinner in the background while pressing buttons.
What's amusing is Aaron's eating his Chinese and pressing buttons in the background, and he's still better at it than I am. So I've now got all these. I've got all these images lined up, and I have to make sure I click the right player. My eyesight's so bad I can't tell who's who.
Seamless.
You guys are going to have to keep an eye on X for me and tell me when it's announced. Hopefully, it's Hajj. That seems to be the most likely candidate. But let's move on. In the meantime, to attacking midfielder. That, as we said, chance creation has been the biggest problem this season. We've not created many in any game, league or cup, really, other than the first round of the cup where we're playing League Two opposition, and we needed an attacking midfielder. We were linked with Michael Baidu, choose your pronunciation. And we've been linked with Remy El Hajj, who we've been linked with, I think, for a few months now. And it seems that for one reason or another, Remy El Hajj has won the race, as it were, to become our new attacking midfielder. Nick, we'll come to you first, Nick, actually, because I know that you have studied them both and been watching highlight reels and drawing conclusions from the data also. Do you think there were similar types of players? Do you think there was a clear skill set, a clear sort of I've forgotten the word that I'm trying to think of, profile, that's it, that we're trying to get? Or do you think that they were different players and we were they just sort of maybe value buys that we're trying to moneyball with in different ways?
I know I could definitely see one key difference to me, which is El Hajj looked a lot more in the mold of the creator. You can see that in his chances created and his assists. Whereas I'm not saying that. I really hope it's pronounced Baidu, because otherwise it's going to be a big long reel of me saying Baidu and it's just completely wrong. It's not to say that Baidu wasn't a creator, but he seemed a bit more of an all-rounder. I suppose to keep it brief, because it's really hard to be able to tell based on the snippets that are available. But there's a reason that someone like Baidu, for example, starting up front yesterday, and has played up front almost as much as they have attacking mid. As far as I can tell, they've either played centre mid in a 3, attacking mid in a 4-2-3-1, or like last night up front in a 4-3-3. So they look a bit more flexible, but they definitely give me that impression of being the sort of person who's making runs and being creative in their movement ahead of being the person who unlocks the door with the passing. And for me, part of the reason why I was a little bit excited with El Hajj over potentially Baidu was one, that it seems that it's coming in considerably cheaper, and I'm sure we'll discuss it later. But as far as I can tell, I think we have more money to spend, or not it gets spent in the summer. It seems unlikely right now. But one of the reasons was that in theory we could potentially purchase more than just Baidu. But the other is, when I look at the team, I think the thing that's really missing right now is the pass who can unlock the defence, because Whitaker's got great movement, Obafemi's got good movement, I'm sure Tijani's got good movement. We know that Hardy, all these players can move quite well, but then I think we're lacking the person who can actually pick them out and make the pass. And I think that's probably why, when I looked, that definitely looked like the point of difference between them. In that El Hajj was definitely the one who was more likely, like Azaz, to be able to play that intricate pass to break down the defence. I'm thinking his assist for Mumba versus Middlesbrough, lifting the ball over the defence for Whitaker to ram home against Rotherham, all those kinds of little neat and tidy passes. I think that's what I'd say is the main point of difference. But they both did look like very good signings. I would have been very happy with either. I'd have been very, very happy with both. But it looks like it's going to be an either.
Yeah. El Hajj confirmed, by the way.
Is it?
Yeah.
Brilliant. Here we go. I was going to interfere, but Aaron's on it already. This is why he should be doing this and not me. There it is.
I feel like
there he is.
Remy El Hajj. He's only 22 as well, isn't he? Am I right in saying that?
He is, yeah.
Yeah, that was the other difference, is he's 22 versus Baidu 25, both turning a year older. I think this in the next coming month, this season, of course the other season, but the next couple of months. So he also potentially has a higher resale element off the age.
Yeah. And as you say, even if you're doing a rough calculation of the maths, if you factor in maybe some bonuses to Morgan Whitaker for scoring and for making the team of the season, if you factor in a few other bonuses for different things and some put aside for wages, there still, by all accounts, is a little left in the kitty. And maybe the club are being sensible and holding something back for January. We know what happened last January when we'd perhaps used up all our eggs in the Whitaker and Mumba basket early on, and then we were left holding the baby. I'm really mixing my metaphors, but we were left struggling when Azaz, Kundal were called back, etc. So maybe that's a wise move to keep something. We know that January is not a good market, and we also know the club hasn't always done its best business in January. But I think hopefully learning from past mistakes, once bitten, twice shy, isn't something we should sniff at either. So let's now that that's been confirmed, we, as Nick suggested, we might be hopeful of someone else joining us, but that's we'll put that on the back burner for now. Maybe we can talk about some of the players that have come in and those that have gone out and where we stand in total. So Grimshaw, we paid was it 600, 700k for, something in that region. We also paid around 400, 500k for Cornel Such. So what do we make of Such so far? Do we think he's a centre back, a versatile defender? Do we, what do we make of him, and do we think he's championship standard from the small cameos that we've seen so far? Adam, you got any opinion?
It's very difficult to decide whether he's championship standard. I know we've seen very little of him. He looked absolutely fine against Cheltenham, but I'd be a lot more worried if he didn't, quite honestly. So it's hard to judge. I think he's played centre back so far, and he's played centre back, competently so far. In the last couple of seasons, or certainly at least last season, he did the majority of good work, in my view anyway, as a right back. He looked like he had the ability to ping a long pass from that right back, the sorts of diagonals that we could look at to the other flank. I guess we'd be looking at Sissoko, for example, but the sort of things that we may be able to see Gibson playing to number as well. Now, of course, he can still do that from centre back. I'm not saying that he's not going to be good there, but for me, and it's not going to be popular, and I appreciate I may well get pelters. I think we've got an excellent centre back in Victor Palsson. I really do. I think the way that he's been portrayed so far is based on that one Sheffield Wednesday performance, which, to be clear, was not very good. I'm not going to dress it up. He's not there. But for the last 2 years, and even under Rooney at DC United, he played as a central centre back and put in some genuinely good numbers. So the fact that we're now looking at him and pushing him to the right back position is kind of like, for example, if we were to say to Dan Sky, "Oh, Dan, no, we think you're great, and we're gonna make you play right back against this fine winger in Sheffield Wednesday," it's not going to work. Whereas the numbers that Palsson had as a central defender was very good in the air, very good with the way that he completed defensive actions, and he also looked like he could be that ball playing defender as well. That's what he did, particularly last season. I think he was almost exclusively a centre back last season when he was playing in Belgium, and by all accounts did well. So I think, that Sheffield Wednesday performance was pretty disgusting. There's no decorating that, but I honestly believe that Such right back, Palsson centre back is something that can work. There's another example. For example, if you want to look at Carl McHugh when he first came in, who had a pretty disastrous debut. I think, as I recall, he might have given away a penalty in 10 minutes or something like that when he was playing as a left back, and he played left back and it just didn't work. As soon as he was brought to the centre, Cambridge away, that was it, yeah. And
1-0.
They missed the penalty and still won, which is pretty gut wrenching. But as soon as he moved to centre back, his more natural position looked a lot better. Now, I'm not saying Palsson comes here as a specialist centre back for his entire career. He has played on the right and he has played in the centre, but last year in particular, he was generally a centre back. And I think at the age of 33, expecting someone who's remodeled himself, turned himself into a genuinely good central defender, and telling him to play on the right against Masaba or Gassama or whoever it was that was on Sheffield Wednesday's left was always going to be a recipe for disaster. So I'd be interested to see. Well, it's one of those. He didn't play well there, but I didn't expect that he'd play well there. And to take it back to the thing you initially asked me on Cornel Such and what I think of him, I'm encouraged. And I genuinely believe that if we're playing Such centre back and Palsson right back at any stage, we've made an error of judgment, because it's not where they've been in their recent points in their careers. So it may not come off. With Such and Palsson, they've come from different leagues, and adapting to the Championship, it can be easy for some, it can be very difficult for others. I used the example before. Finn Azaz going from League One to the Championship was an absolute dream. He just kept improving. Ballymumba, by all means, had a decent season, but didn't quite have the. I love that he hates to agree with me. I appreciate it. Thank you. Ballymumba was similar. He, came up from from League One to the Championship with us. Didn't do badly, but didn't hit the heights of the stats. Adapting to the Championship can be tough, and it may well be the case that Such and Paulson, or whichever way, it just doesn't work out. I'm more than happy for this to have egg on my face at the end of the season, when it turns out that it's been a disaster of a signing, and I shouldn't have put my eggs in that basket. But hey, yeah, I've said my piece on that. I think the treatment of Paulson has been unfair. I really want to see him in his best position, and I really think a defence that maybe you put Paulson as a central centre back and Such next to him, maybe you put Paulson as a centre back and Such right back. I genuinely believe that could work, and I just hope we get the chance to see it.
Well, I can definitely say it was a credible argument. I don't know how many will buy it, but I think you made the case.
Not many,
well.
I'm sure.
We're 36 minutes in, and there are over 4,000 of you watching us, which is absolutely fantastic. Thank you ever so much for joining us. I have to say something at this point, please like, comment, subscribe, and follow us on all social media platforms. I don't really know what social media platforms we're on. I know we're on Twitter. I know we're on YouTube. Possibly we have something in Facebook too. But hopefully you can go and find us and follow us, and the bosses will be very happy with that. By bosses, I'm referring to Aaron and Sam, but they like to act the sweet innocents, but they crack the whip. So Drew, let's run through some of the ins and outs. If we include Isaka and Roberts coming into the first team squad, we've had Ogbeta, Tijani, Sissoko, JB, Obafemi, Paulson, and the two we've mentioned already, Such and Grimshaw come in. And out we've had Miller, Tyreek Wright, and Dan Scarr. Burton and Cooper being perhaps the one area that makes it most conspicuous that we may have weakened. So with that bigger disparity between those coming in and coming out, shouldn't we be stronger this season? And do you think we actually are? Anybody there you want to highlight, but perhaps that going out that you think will be a big miss, or anyone coming in that maybe is flying under the radar?
Tijani is the kind of great unknown at the moment for me. That we certainly, I'd like to hope we didn't see the best of him at Sheffield Wednesday, because I hardly saw any of him at Sheffield Wednesday. I mean, he may as well have been a lighthouse for a lot of the game. He's not been near the squad since, and you understand that's because of an injury, which maybe that would contribute to his performance. So, everybody was hoping that he was the sort of physical striker we've not had since Sam Cosgrove left. So you'd like to hope that's the case. I mean, I think Paul Sturrock once said, basically 50% of your signings don't work out. And he had a pretty good record in signing players, particularly during his first stint. So, he's a wise old bird, Luggy. Looking at other players that have gone out, I mean, I've said before with Dan Scarr, I loved him to bits as a human being. I loved his bravery as a player, his wholeheartedness. And I kind of think it was the right move for everybody, because he's the kind of player that needs to be, I think, a key player in the dressing room and to play most games and to be a leader. And I think if Argyle to progress as a team, as a squad, and the level of football we're playing, you kind of need an upgrade from Dan Scarr, and he can't become a squad player. I think we saw, obviously Foster made him less than a squad player, and then actually thank you very much, Ian Foster, for firing him up and making him play as well as he did to help keep us up. But yeah, so that's Dan Scarr for me.
Sorry, can I ask, how much do you think we got for Scarr? Because in my head I'm reckoning 6 figures on the low end, but I just wondered how much you would have thought.
I know nothing, literally. I mean,
I don't know if you've been told.
Maybe 300k, but I know no more than anyone else on that. Callum Burton's an interesting one, because I think he basically, obviously, he was down at number 3 once Mike Cooper was fit again last season, and I think he'd already kind of got the move lined up. I mean, knowing that Cooper was going to leave, I think he'd basically already kind of got the nod that he wouldn't be fighting for the number 1 jersey, even if Mike Cooper did go. And I think fair play to him for, again, dropping to a level where he can get more game time. Saxon Early, Lincoln City, I think that could be a really good move for all involved. I mean, he's had his problems with injuries. It could be like a lot of those signings from January in the promotion season, that it just won't work out. That it would have been a good League One signing, and the fact that we did go up mean that we've gone to a level above where he is right now. He might still get there, and maybe he'll go and rip it up at Sincil Bank, and I hope he does. It's a little bit possibly. I mean, because he was starting to get a look in at the start of last season before he got injured, wasn't he?
Yeah.
But again, that was under the previous management, and sometimes it just is the case that different managers come in, players are brought in the meantime. Ogbetta's come in as well, so I think for early that one makes a lot of sense. In terms of the other players that have come in, and Such, I agree, look pretty well at home against Watford, apart from the crucial fact that he let his man in front of him for their second goal.
Yeah.
Apart from that, he looked
Worth
pretty good.
noting, it was offside. I'm not sure if anyone's picked up on this. He seems quite blatantly offside when I've watched it back. Gibson
felt
seemed
the
quite
same at the
angry as
time.
well.
I wondered if it was a
turns
case
around and
that
screams at the linesman. He barely even competed.
did they give it onside because Pleggy challenged for it? Now, whether they should have done that, I don't know. But the fact that Pleggy's touched it on the way, I thought my instinct was that's why they gave him onside. But yeah, he did look quite close to the keeper. I'll say that much.
Yeah. I just assumed it would come off Pleggy, and that was why it was onside. But I wasn't paying a great deal of attention by that point of the game. It's odd, really, because we were only one down, but we were not really looking like being any less than that, really. Ogbetta, I hope he settles. He's not really convinced me so far, the odd monster. And I'd love him to do well, just because we call him the odd monster as well. Yeah, I think he's Barley Mumba is definitely our best left back as things stand. The other point about Barley, actually, just picking up on what was sort of said about him last season, I think it did disrupt him quite a lot. That he played in about 3 or 4 different positions, and to start with, they were playing him on the left-hand side of the 4-3-3. And I think what we found out from that is that he's a much better player playing from behind the ball than in front of it. I think we know that now. It'd be interesting to see, can he be a left back rather than a wing back in a back 4 or on a back 5? But yeah, what Mumba brings in terms of carrying the ball, I think that's what they were hoping that Ogbetta would be as well, and we haven't seen that yet. It's very early to be judging players, and I don't like to be trying and write someone off after just a couple of games. But the scope for improvement there.
So Burton and Cooper, I think we kind of understand the reasons behind both of them going. Does anybody want to have a talk about Cooper any more than that? Would we gloss over it, or does anyone have a bee in their bonnet or an interest? I think we kind of understand he pushed to go and try and. I mean, in his defence, he's got a very slim window at the age he is to sort of move on to a field to sort of hit those heights. We can kind of understand the personal motivation maybe. But yeah, it's sad to lose Cooper. The other person who went out we discussed there is Mikel Miller. I don't think too many people cried about Mikel Miller leaving as much as he had been a good servant and I think tried very hard. I think the hope was that we could maybe upgrade when the news that Ogbetta came in. I think even before Miller's contract ran out, sort of gave some people hope. Do we think we missed Mikel Miller now, having seen Ogbetta, and now we've had Mumba back at left back? Do you think that he was maybe underrated by a large portion of the fans? Nick, what do you think? Or do you feel like we've got the squad that it's not a big loss?
Amusingly, thus far, Miller, not the great defender though he was, does look thus far. Ogbetta's defending has been worse than Miller's was when during that spell he played at left back. Found that a bit amusing. Miller leaving was one of those ones that seemed right for all parties to me. Not quite, definitely not quite, nowhere near clinical enough to play as a winger. Not defensive enough to play left back, and Barley Mumba's the best left wing back. So I mean, I think I might be wrong on this, but I think he was on relatively good wages, and I think the idea was that with the contract expiring, we could bring in someone young and potentially better. That may yet still happen. We're on the topic of Miller. This popped into my head earlier today, which was you probably, in fact, you almost certainly don't remember this, but when we played Norwich away, the 2-1 loss last season, there was a point where I think Alfie Devine, maybe it was Whitaker, played Miller in. No, it was definitely Devine. It played Miller in behind. And if he plays a first-time cross, Whitaker's got a lovely tap in, but he takes a touch, then picks his head up, and by that point, Norwich have scrambled 3 defenders between the two, and there's no one left, and he gets smuggled behind for a corner. That kind of spoke to me two things. One, the difference between League One and Championship in that you need to be really up to the speed of the game. If you need to take a touch to look up, often your gap is quickly closing, and that's why Finn Azaz was so great. That's why I'm hoping Hajj is going to be great too. But equally, it made me think of Wright's. Oh, I know we're talking about Watford again, but Wright's square ball opportunity. I watched it back. I don't think he actually picks his head up and looks across goal. I think I might be wrong, but I think he just looks up and looks at goal and picks where he's going to hit it, rather than having that sort of presence of mind. And that to me is rather speaking about why Wright hasn't been able to make the step up with either us or Blackpool, in the sense that it's not that he's really lacking in quality. I think he's lacking a bit in ability to make those great moments count, but just a little bit slow behind the game. And like saying that, he reminds me a bit of Miller, in that Miller's only danger really came when he just hit it as hard as he could across goal and got a bit lucky with it catching a player like against Birmingham. So I'm not bothered about Miller moving on. I wish him best of luck, and obviously thanks for his efforts in the promotion season. But Championship's ruthless, and you've got to just keep moving forward and improving the squad, because, I mean, well, as I say, improving the squad. Let's see if Ogbetter turns out to be that improvement, because I was going to say, what happens if Mumba gets injured and we have to then play Miller, but now the option there would be Ogbetter, and I think we're all a bit sceptical right now.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think the jury's still out. It should be said, a lot of the team is getting to know each other, yet to really gel, and we've seen an improvement in the cohesion in the performances. So hopefully no one is taking these comments if they're watching. If one of the 4,330 is any member of the squad, not that we'd be presumptuous enough to presume they'd be watching, but if it is, please don't take our criticism seriously. One, we know nothing, and two, we understand that this is early doors. So those are the outs. Let's think about the ins then. So we've talked about Zouche, we've talked about Grimshaw, we have already mentioned Powson a little bit. How about we start off though with Isaka and Roberts, who have graduated to the first team squad, and I personally was really excited to see Caleb Roberts, bigger in frame and stature, really energetic around the middle of the park. Gutted he's injured. I think he could be just as promising in many ways as Freddie Isaka. Drew, you can pick either or speak on both. What do you make of those two? And do you think that knowing Rooney likes to blood youngsters, do you think they will see time whilst he's here as manager? Do you think they deserve time whilst he's here rather than just as a gimmick? Do you rate them? Give us your thoughts.
I mean, what I've seen, we've seen more of Freddie this season than we have ever before, really. And what we've seen has been very promising, obviously, apart from the sending off. And sending off was just, that was a young player going in for a ball he thought he was going to get to, and he didn't. And it's, I think probably, in 1994, that's likely not even a yellow card. And it's just going to dust yourself down and off you go again, maybe a free kick. But yeah, 2024, that's probably is a red. And it's a shame he got suspended for 3 games, because he probably had some more game time coming up. But he'll have a little break from the first team now. Through the international break it goes, doesn't it? But yeah, I mean, he's looked, arguably as good or possibly even better than Whitaker and Sissoko from some of the touches he's had, some of the runs he's made. I mean, I was really struggling for any positive points after Sheffield Wednesday, but one of them was Freddie Isaka did really well after he came on. There was a chance he put pretty much on. It collected the ball, ran about just outside the edge of the box, held it up, played the perfect pass to Morgan Whitaker, and then Morgan Whitaker's shot ended up somewhere between the edge of the 6-yard box and the 18-yard box. But that wasn't Freddie's fault. So I think he's got a lot of potential. Caleb Roberts is he plays obviously deeper, and that's somewhere where you can get showed up more. On the other hand, I saw him start in the cup away at Leeds, and there's a lot of potential there. And I think from the sort of reading the runes and the everything else about this, the fact he's in the first team squad suggests to me they were going to use him. I think the one thing that's been said about Rooney and the way he wants to use young players, that it's not like the Derek Adams era where kind of these players are kind of training with the first team squad, but you never actually see them play. I think if he's in the squad and he trains well, he'll get a go. Probably more a sub than as a starter, but We haven't really seen enough of Caleb for me, and I've not been following the youth team closely enough to know if he's more of an 8 or a 6. I think he's more of an 8. But he played more as a 6 at Leeds. So, sometimes it's only as a player develops you get a really feel for what their best position is.
He was the top scorer for the academy last year, I believe. I added as many of the goals up, so I'm pretty certain there weren't any missed. I know there's quite a few penalties in there, but set piece duty as well, I believe. I think he's more of an 8 based on reading the academy reports, but obviously you see so little of them. So
yeah, I think that he potentially has the skill set to be an old school box to box midfielder, the sort of player you don't really see in systems these days. And certainly he's got the skill set to be one of those versatile players that fills in even in his second string job, which are so valued by the club. We seem to sort of go after that kind of profile of player, someone who can perhaps is quite comfortable in a second position, a la Paulson. So I think the first signing that came in, other than Ogbeta, was Tijani, was it not? Now it's rumored that his the option to buy at the end of his contract would be, and I think this is from Czech sources, so it might be a little bit of good PR from the Czech side of things, but the option to buy at the end of his contract would be a transfer record in terms of purchases for Plymouth Argyle. So he's come in with a lot of expectation, possibly. Certainly, you imagine from the director of football and the manager, if they're willing to take him on board with that. Obviously, if it's an option, there's not any pressure there. But I think I'd be fair to say he hasn't really wowed so far. Would anybody want to disagree? Anyone think that he's lit anything up? So with that in mind, do we think he's going to come good? Do we think he's got the traits to offer us something different, or to offer what we've got in a better package? Adam, what do you think? Are you excited about TJ?
I can see potential. I agree totally with what Drew said, by the way. I think it was you, Drew. Sorry if I'm putting words in your mouth about him being the first striker we've had of that profile since Sam Cosgrove. The physicality that he brings. I think I mentioned it this long ago now when he first came in. Like the amount of fouls this guy made last season in the Czech League was pretty obscene. So defenders are always going to know that they've been in a game. I'm not as excited by his stats as I was when I opened my one-man Victor Paulson fan club a few minutes ago. But I can see where the appeal is, and I can say it's still reasonable to suggest that it's unfair to judge a player off just that one aberration at Sheffield Wednesday, where I don't think anybody aside from Isaka came out smelling of roses. So I can see where Tijani could work. I can see how in a Rooney system he could be used in a similar way to the way he tried to use Lukas Jutkiewicz at Birmingham last season, in what was admittedly a very small spell and a very small sample size, but it did see an increase in minutes for a striker who is very physical. And Tijani, I've no doubt, could play that role, and that's a transferable skill in any league you will, if you make sure he's hitting the weights, I guess. So he does have that talent for sure. He also, I think we, I couldn't find any of his XG stats, but I think we were all pretty certain that based on the number of big chances he missed last season, that he probably underperformed his XG. And you can obviously see that a couple of ways. You can say optimistically, well, he's getting into the right positions. He just needs to take a few more of those chances when he's at Argyle, and he'll prove to be a successful goal scorer. Alternatively, you could say, this guy clearly can't hit a barn door. Why have we brought him in? It depends ultimately on your natural level of optimism. And I guess that's where a loan to buy is good. Because if he does hit those numbers and he does become the player that he can be or has the potential to be, then the money that we've held back, presumably to give us the option of activating that clause and buying him permanently, would make a lot of sense. Equally, if it turns out that the Sheffield Wednesday game is the only time we'll ever see him, and he tends to be an absolute nuisance on the training ground, and he just doesn't play at all, then yes, of course, we can then cut the loan, or at least not extend the loan at the end of the season and say our goodbyes. So it's a useful deal to have. It struck me actually as the club perhaps learning a little from the Finnazans debacle last season, where it would have made actually quite an awful lot of it would have made an awful lot of sense to purchase him outright. The second useful thing that would have happened is in that loan adding an option to buy similar to the one that we have here to give us as much leeway. So perhaps that's why a similar deal like that has come about. But I think it suits all parties. I mean, unless we're paying an astronomical loan fee, unless we're paying an obscene amount of his wages, which we can't rule out, I suppose we haven't got access to the books, then I think this deal is sensible, and I can certainly see a path to Tijani being a success while he's here. But a lot of the onus, of course, is on him to get fit, to get on the field and to deliver. And on that one, only time's going to tell.
Yeah. Drew, Nick, either of you want to add anything on Tijani?
Drew?
I think I pretty much said everything I had to say at the moment. The other thing about the Sheffield Wednesday game in general, it sort of struck me that perhaps that was nothing more sinister than we were just a bit undercooked from pre-season. If you look at the quality of sides we've been playing, and maybe we've finished off by playing Bristol Rovers and NK Dons, and then suddenly they're pitched. The new signings are pitched in against a pacey, fairly physical, high pressing Sheffield Wednesday side. And it's like, bloody hell, is this the standard? Hell, And if the physical fitness wasn't quite up to 100%, that could have explained it. So yeah, getting back 100% fit, get match fit, and we'll see what he's got.
Nick?
I think that's a bit of a generous interpretation of Sheffield Wednesday, but it's definitely one that could well be true. It's not my personal take. Now, I was going to say on Tijani, I think the thing that's most noteworthy to me is he's obviously, like, say, that Sam Cosgrove presence in particular. I think we're all thinking winner against Sheffield Wednesday, one of the best headers I've ever seen by an Argyle player in terms of power generated from a standstill line. That's game-winning moment. Reason I bring that up is you look at the tactical sets right now, or rather the chance creation right now, which is really struggling to break teams down. Hajj might well change that, but right now it looks like our best route towards success is going to be getting it wide, which Rooney's been doing, and then putting those balls in. And if we're then thinking who's the most likely person to get on the end of those and thunder ahead at home, we're probably putting our money on Tijani. So
he is enormous. Like,
right.
Not just
you didn't get a chance of that at Wednesday. Did we even have a corner while he was on the pitch? Like genuinely, I'm not sure. Like I think we barely put a cross in that he could have attacked. So yeah, I think that's what I'm intrigued to see is, does the tactical approach evolve? Because right now I'm quite skeptical about its ability to create chances, even if you're inserting Hajj in without rejigging it slightly, without rebalancing it slightly. But two, if not, then is Tijani going to become first choice because he's going to be the person who's actually going to be able to make something of the way we're playing by getting it wide and being able to attack crosses. Relies on putting good crosses in, of course. But yeah, that's my thought on Tijani.
Well, someone I do think has shown flashes of promise, and I think most fans are a little excited about, at least, is Ibrahim Sissoko, who is just outrageous. He seems to have an aura as well in person. I know, Drew, you've probably around the players more than us. I really loved your anecdote about Dan Scarr. But, just sort of seeing him getting off the coach at Torquay in pre-season and seeing him out on the way he carries himself in warm-up, and in the game, he seems to have a real presence. And he shows that on the pitch, I think. Let's go in reverse order, back round the way we came. Nick, your thoughts on Sissoko thus far?
So I like the look of Sissoko, but I actually think he's a little bit of a show pony. I kind of want to be a bit more direct and drop the... I'm probably not the best person to ask. Like,
well, no, that's why I came to you first, because I remembered the clip from the particular movie which you'd quoted.
Oh yeah, goal. Yeah, honestly, I think his best moments thus far came against Cheltenham, particularly his assist in the way that he picked it up, he drove, he put a perfect cross in, done. Right. Otherwise, on already too many occasions for me, I've seen him slow the game down by throwing stepovers, which, yeah, he's beaten his man, but the team is now very well set, and if we haven't got the players to break that structure down, then him slowing it down to beat a player with a stepover hasn't really, if anything, it's taken us backwards. It's not necessarily his fault if we haven't got things might now change, and I might look on him more favourably if we have a player like Hajj who's going to come in and hopefully be able to make something of pushing those teams back. But right now, that's frustrated me a little bit. But really, I'm just looking to see a bit more end product from everyone. Really, that's not just a Sissoko thing. That's an every player thing. I think one thing that's also been noteworthy is in the whole game he was inverting and Mumba was storming down the left, and then that reverted against QPR where Mumba inverted and then Sissoko was wide on the left, gave him more opportunity to get space and take on his man. Downside was Mumba from left back he looked exhausted. There was a reason he had to go off because he was having to sprint. He wasn't just going up and down the line, he was having to sprint into attacking mid and then back to left back. So that's a potential concern there, but I like the look at Sissoko. I just want him to be a bit more efficient with his use of the ball, maybe pick the right moment to throw the step-ups out there.
Yeah, his defensive stats didn't look brilliant from last season, as incredible as his carries and dribbles were. Drew, your thoughts on Sissoko? And I'll tell you what, while you're there, because I know that it's your slot is coming to a close now. Your thoughts on Sissoko, and also throw in anything else that you wanted to add about the transfer window thus far, about the season, anything you want to get off your chest or put out there to the 4,668 people watching.
Cool. Sissoko, I mean, David Norris made the point that he and Freddie Osaka were the two that stood out at Sheffield Wednesday, but he also made the point that he's the kind of player in the kind of position where in a defeat you will stand out because you're the one that's making runs and you're the one that's having a bit of a go. What it does do is it gives teams a threat on either side to have to think about with him and Whitaker, and teams can't. And if we've got Sissoko as well, teams can't just double mark Whitaker, and that is our creative outlet blocked up. So that in itself is great. I think he is here to learn when to pick the right pass and when to deliver. That's why Toulouse have loaned him out to us for that bit in his development. By the way, as we were all searching for our Hajj confirmation, I did spot on the club Twitter that he's been called up for the Dutch under-21s, which is nice thing to have associated with the club as well. I can't think of us having a Dutch under-21 player before. Could be wrong. So that's good. As far as the whole transfer window goes, we've always, in last season, we kind of run out of time and put a lot of eggs on the basket of signing Josh Coburn by the sound of it, and we ended up with Bundu quite late on, and he's had his moments, and his goal against Leicester kept us up, frankly. But equally, we've not seen him as a regular starter, and I still don't know what his best position is. So hopefully we've done our homework in this window, and hopefully Al Hajj will be the player that we hope he's going to be. What are we on now? 9:35. Still hopeful we might maybe sign one more, but maybe not. I think we're more likely now after this point in the evening to perhaps we'll hear that a couple of players that go on loan somewhere, possibly in a lower division. On the whole, I think the squad is very, very gradually evolving, and I hope it's very gradually getting stronger. There have actually been quite a lot of changes. So hopefully it all beds in. But if we keep Morgan Whitaker, and Morgan Whitaker goes back to being the Morgan Whitaker he was in the first half of last season, and also someone a comment on the text there as well made a point about Obafemi, the tugboat. I think everyone can agree he's looked like a very useful signing. Argyle tweets with that one. He puts himself about. He's got skill. He's got pace. I loved it when we brought him as sub, but he just basically went around getting up people's noses. He was great at it. Love that. Everything. The fanniness. I think we all have a player that gets stuck in, and he'll be one of them. Still, I don't think any of us have seen whether he's best as a striker or a wide striker or playing in where. But he's an asset to the squad as well.
Brilliant. Thanks ever so much for your contributions tonight, Drew. It's been a pleasure as always to have you on.
Lovely. Good to see you all as well.
Thank you. Actually, Aaron, are you there? Will you be able to do the rotations, or would you like me to do it? Oh, he's on it already. He's done it. Hello, Alberto.
Hi, everyone. Hello, Jenners.
Just to introduce to those who don't know, Alberto is a professional statistician, data analyst. Why don't you tell us who you are, Alberto? You introduce yourself to the fans.
Sure. Well, first and foremost, I'm an Argyle fan. Then yes, one of my jobs, I'm an engineer and data analyst consultant, and I work for DAZN in Italy, which is the main TV broadcaster for football here in Italy, and I provide data insight, let's say, to them, and sometimes also to my friends here at Argyle Life. I like to contribute to in my little part for the team that I support.
Yeah, and we're very grateful to have you on Argyle Life with your insights. So thank you for joining us tonight. We were just talking about Ibrahim Sissoko. We were working our way through the incomings this season. The only three left to discuss, really, although Adam has talked about Victor Paulsen, are Darko JB coming back on loan, Obafemi coming in up front, and Paulsen himself. So, would you like to take on any of those as a fan? You can put your data analyst hat on as well if you wish to, but just as a fan, do you want to take one of those three, Paulsen, JB, Obafemi, and tell us what you've made of them so far or what you're expecting from them?
Regarding Obafemi, I can't really say much. I admit I didn't know him very well, so I'm not gonna lose time on that. Paulsen, I actually do rate him. I think he could.
Adam,
yes,
Adam
hated him then.
saying he's been.
Of course,
the Victor Paulsen fan club as a second member. I love it.
Yeah, well, listen. Of course, these few matches we've seen so far, they haven't been great, and I think we all can agree to that. But I did see some good attitude from him, and I think he's also versatile. He can play center back, and he can play also as a wing back. The game against Sheffield, of course, it was a singularity. I mean, I hope sincerely we are not gonna still play like that again this season. It was probably one of the worst matches I've ever watched of Plymouth. So I think in general that he's experienced, and he's a championship level, definitely. He has also international experience, so he brings to the table a lot of good points that we were lacking also. So I do rate him, and I hope he will find more space in the starting 11 with the games to come. The other one was Sissoko. You said you were.
JB.
Sorry, J. And on the other hand, JB, I don't really like him. I mean, last year he was good under Foster, but I again hope we're not playing again any kind of Foster ball. And in general, I mean, he's young, he's a prospect, he has potential, he can grow and be a much better player. But from what I've seen last year, from what I've seen this year, in order to judge properly a player, you always have to understand how the team is going to play, and it's very difficult to say at this moment of the season, because we've just seen.
Sorry to interrupt. You got the breaking news. There's been an outgoing.
Oh, there's been an outgoing. Let's see if
who have we missed?
Wait, let's let you have a go at the graphics first.
Okay.
That's fine.
Just to close on Gabi, I mean, in general, I don't think it really. Well, so far the games that he has played.
You can keep talking, Alberto.
Okay.
Find it slowly.
Sorry. So far the games he has played, he hasn't convinced me. I hope he will, since at least we have him for quite some time.
Oh, all right.
He's definitely have potential, but. I do hope we find someone better to fill his spot. Although I have to admit he is able to bring balance in the team, both with the offensive contribution and defensive contribution. So he's not, of course, a wasted player. He can find his. I guess Rooney can find his use for the team. I was honestly hoping for something better, but someone better. But we'll see. We'll see.
And he still might yet develop. We can be hopeful that he progresses.
Sure, he can improve. He has definitely potential.
And I think what you said about Paulson having experience is actually an underrated asset of his, given that with Michael Cooper leaving, with Dan Scarr leaving, there's a slight void, I think, in the leadership group, maybe in the dressing room. And if he can come in and, if he can mesh with the personalities in, that could be a useful asset if he gets game time. Nick, why don't you finish us off talking about the incomings thus far? Talk us through Obafemi, and Adam, I'll let you throw in a thought or two as well if you've got anything to add, because I'm nice like that.
I thought Obafemi, weirdly again, I agree that Grimshaw was somehow man of the match against Watford, which seemed ridiculous after his mistake, and including the fact he passed it straight to a Watford striker in his own box. Kind of summed up how the game went. But aside from that, I thought the next best player who stood out was Obafemi. His movement, there was intelligence in his movement, the way he shaped his body to get around players, the way he attacked space. I mean, he's probably the highest profile signing we've made since when, in terms of a player with championship experience and championship goals, not aged. Obviously, Forshaw sort of fits into that, but he's more at the end of his career versus someone like Obafemi when, was he 24, am I right in saying? I think he's, yeah.
Oh,
so
it seems like he must be older than that, because he must have been a teenager when he broke through at Southampton. It seems like he was like
18, wasn't he?
26 or something, but yeah.
Maybe, yeah. Obviously, the last year and a half, it didn't go as well for him as he planned, forcing his... one thing we haven't quite mentioned about Al-Hajj is that, you'll see why I'm coming back onto this, but one thing we haven't quite mentioned about Al-Hajj is the club he's left are 7 games into their season. He hasn't played a minute or been in the squad, because the implication is he's forced his way out because they were relegated and he wants to move on, potentially because he's aware of Argyle's interest, because the link with us was 6 weeks back to begin with. That's obviously not ideal, particularly considering we're a relegation candidate. Might we feel the sting in the tail by the end of the season? Not something to really worry about right now, but Obafemi did the same thing with Swansea, where he really tried to force through that move to Burnley and eventually got it, and it hasn't really paid off for him. I'm sure he's happy to be here, but let's face it, if you told him after the back end, after his Swansea season, that 2 years' time he'd be playing for Argyle, I think
Wayne Rooney's Argyle, though, he's got the
still
opportunity to come in.
Argyle. But come on, I think if you told him that, rather than... He probably had an eye on the Premier League at that point. It's probably why he forced him to move through to Burnley. So that's potentially a concern. But I mean, you could see the difference in quality. I spoke about... it feels like I'm really pummeling right here, but I spoke about Wright's sort of poor decision making and not being quite clinical enough. Obafemi looked markedly different. He looked like he was up to speed with the game. He looked like he just needed some quality around him. And to be honest, I kind of felt sorry for him because he got so little service. Watford had started the season well, but they haven't been amazing. They scraped out the win against Millwall after nearly throwing it away, and I think 2 of their goals were absolute screens. Like, Watford are up there. I think they'll probably be a mid-table side, a bit like Birmingham last season, whereby started fast and slowed off. But Obafemi will probably be a bit frustrated that he had to go through that game and basically had no support. But I'm looking at him and thinking that he's probably our best striker. Initially, my concern was that we brought him into play as that second striker because he was very similar in profile to Bundu, and potentially it was a case that was the way Rooney was going with it. I feel a bit more reassured now I've actually filled that role, that he's here just to play a striker, and that makes him a smarter, stronger signing. But do you start Hardy, your hard-working, proved striker over a number of years who got double figures last year, who hasn't looked great this year, but equally we've created absolutely nothing for him. Don't forget, he had a one-on-one in each of the first 3 games last season. He scored his one-on-one against Huddersfield. He missed his one-on-one against Watford, and then did the same again, albeit intercepting a back pass. He missed his one-on-one played through by Randall against Watford, and then he dived for his one-on-one against Southampton when Azaz played him through. So he's had absolutely nothing created for him. So do you stick with Hardy? Do you go with someone who looks like he's higher profile and better player versus someone who's really worked hard, basically as a Joe Edwards in that position, not quite on the same level, but like they've earned their respect, they've earned their place in the team? Who do each go with. I'll let Adam make that.
The other that might factor into that is that Hardy is an asset of the club. I use asset in a he's a human being, but he has value to the club, and not playing him reduces that value. Whereas Obafemi will go on and further his career elsewhere. Whether Wayne Rooney, if times get desperate, will consider that or not, I don't know. Should acknowledge that the breaking news and the graphic that flashed up of Ben Waine on it is, we should probably acknowledge that Ben Waine has gone to Mansfield on a season-long loan. It seemed inevitable. I feel that he was going to leave during this window, but as it was drawing to a close, maybe it wasn't going to happen. It has. I feel like that's a good move for Wayne. I feel like that's if anything, he might be slightly punching there, but it's a team that's just been we're not relegated, promoted, and so they're taking a punt perhaps on someone who does have the ability to be a good poacher in the box. He can finish when he's in and around, but I think he does have certain deficiencies in his game. So whether he'll go there and develop, or whether he'll go there and find his level, at least he'll be getting regular playing time. I think for him at least, that's a good move, and he certainly wasn't going to be getting as many minutes here, where the one place we are overstocked, or certainly much better stocked than last season, is that striking department. So I think the two big issues for Argyle coming into this window were whether we were going to keep Michael Cooper and Morgan Whitaker. Now, obviously, it seems at the moment that we've kept one and lost the other, and as well as with losing Callum Burton, the goalkeeping position is going to be quite pivotal, or at least it's going to be important. Now, I think Conor Hazard demonstrated last season his shot stopping ability, his distribution and speed of thought sometimes was not so impressive, but a very capable championship keeper, as much as he frustrated some fans. I think in terms of the actual nuts and bolts of goalkeeping, he acquitted himself very well. But with the Argyle went out and spent quite a good chunk on Daniel Grimshaw in the window. One thing I noticed in comparing or just a brief look at his stats was that he comes for high balls and crosses even less than Conor Hazard, which has been a bone of contention among fans. Michael Cooper, quite the opposite, right at the top of the centiles in terms of his ability and the confidence he puts into the back line. So very different keepers. I know, Alberto, before Grimshaw came in, you were actually looking at the data and you were looking at some of the potential keepers who had a similar profile to Cooper that could come in and fill a similar role. What did you find? Was there anyone out there that we could have gone for? And obviously, now that we've got Grimshaw, how does Grimshaw compare to those?
Sure. May I present on the screen? So
yes, please do.
Maybe I can share, because I did a couple of charts, not charts actually, graphics that could be seen. Let's see if it works. Okay, let's see. Okay, can you see?
Yes, there we go.
Okay, so first and foremost, you asked about the selection. Yeah, I was doing, since Argyle was taking a bit of time to find a replacement for Cooper, I decided to make a kind of little research, amatorial research, that actually everybody can do with the free data available. Let me just point out that unfortunately, regarding goalkeepers, there are very few data available. And when choosing a goalkeeper, it is also important the whole scouting process when you go, like evaluating his positioning and his communication with the squad. And that's something you can do just looking at videos. But what professionals do as well at the beginning of this process is they filter, because of course they don't have time to look at all the keepers in the world. And just in my case, for instance, I analyzed the keepers that played in the leagues that you can find on the right. last year, and they were in total 520, about, more or less. So, of course, had to filter them down, and I decided to look for a keeper that would replace Cooper. At least, let's say he would perform more or less like him. So I checked that the keeper, of course, would have played a certain minutes of time, because otherwise the data is not
Relevant.
Let's say relevant, exactly. So I considered players that played at least nine matches. Then I looked at saves percentage, which on a small sample is not very relevant. It's quite an old and like a badly aged kind of data that doesn't tell you much, but on a bigger size it helps you filter. So I looked at keepers that at least saved 68% of the shots that they had to face on target. And then another filter that I checked was comparing their performance with the expected goals that they should have conceded, the expected goals on target that they should have conceded. And my filter in this case was that they had a positive difference between expected goals that they should have conceded and goals that they actually conceded, meaning that they prevented more goals than an average keeper over a span of 5 years. Of course, if I had data for less years, I had to consider the seasonal data that I had available for free. Then I looked at I looked at the way Rooney teams has played in the past, and I've noticed, for instance, that last year their keeper was one of the keepers that played the most long balls in the league. So I assumed that, of course, in modern football you need a keeper that is in general you need a keeper. It's better to have a keeper that other than, of course, savings and having a good positioning, a good communication, is also good with his feet. You can see that in the choice of Manchester City having Ederson rather than a better keeper that saves, because of how good he was with the feet. And for example, Juventus as well, they just changed the keepers. They sent Szczesny to retirement, and they just bought a new keeper that is particularly good also with the feet. So in general, I was trying to focusing on long passes and long goal kicks accuracy. So I filtered them as well, and I tried to find a player that had more than 30% of long goal kicks accuracy and more than 40% of long passes accuracy in general. And then I looked at, so far Grimshaw would still have been in the list. The point, as you said before, Ben, when he left the list, basically, was crosses claimed or high balls claimed, where we had Cooper last year, that was, I don't remember if the best or the second best in the league in this metric. And then we have Hazard, who is, I do rate him as a keeper. He is extremely good at preventing goals. Unfortunately, we've all seen that his distribution could be improved, let's say. And also he could read better the high balls coming in the area. So I was looking for a keeper that could bring something more to the table. And unfortunately here I had to filter out among the others Grimshaw. And in the end, a final, let's say, cut was made considering players that were already sold or already on loan, estimated value of the player. I considered a maximum budget for Plymouth of 2 million, which I considered kind of fair, considering
it would have been reinvesting the Cooper money. Basically, that would have been the cut.
Exactly. exactly, because I was thinking that the idea was to bring a new number one, let's say, not a substitute to Hazard. And then the willingness to join Argyle. For instance, I had to filter out players that were playing, for example, in the first level of Bundesliga this year, because it would have been probably unlikely that they would decide to leave, with all due respect to the team that I support, but it would be highly unlikely that they would have missed a place in the top German tier to play in the second English one. And so after all of this, I came to this list, which of course to me also a lot of them are basically unknown profiles. What I can say, what is interesting to say maybe, is that Kevin from Moreirense is in the list, and it was also associated with Plymouth. There were rumors that the club was in talks to sign him, and this could prove that, partially the amateurial work, piece of analysis that I did was good enough, but also that the selection process at Argyle is data-driven, and that's a good sign, because in general, a data-driven approach in the scouting process and also in the match analysis, but that's another application of the data analysis, can potentially save you a lot of money and make you make a lot of money. So I'm happy with that.
So you're saying that if the Argyle scouts, the Argyle data team, had sort of used the same criteria as you, they'd have come to this sort of list, and Kevin would have been one of the ones that they would have identified, and that might have led to the inquiry if it was a real thing that was rumored earlier in the window.
Yeah, sure. I mean, of course, I expect the data team at Argyle to have much more data, to have a paid provider, so their scouting process has been done for sure in a more professional way. This is a way that I could teach to literally anybody, and anybody could have fun, try to try to replace, let's say, one of the players that just left Plymouth. But yes.
So what about Dan Grimshaw then? What did the stats tell you about him?
Sure. So here I made a quickly comparison of him with the keeper that we had, so Hazard, the keeper that just left Cooper, and in general all the other keepers' performances in the last championship, and this is how he rates. I mean, for the saving percentage is quite average, but what's most important is that he's top performer for goals prevented, and I've checked his previous season, and he's always performed very well in this metric. Therefore, we have an even better a slightly better keeper even than Hazard at goals preventing. For the crosses,
he's a slightly better shot stopper even than Hazard. Yeah, that's what you're.
He's better than Hazard, slightly better than Hazard, and let's say comparable to Cooper that had a very good season last year, and one of the best in the league, because the more you see these areas that I draw, this radar chart, the more they are towards the end of the chart, the more they reach the best of the leagues. So the bigger the area it is, the better the performances have been. Therefore, again, slightly above average in saving percentage, but very good in goal preventing. So that's the metric that we should look at. Cross-claimed, unfortunately, between Cooper and Hazard was already the least prone to that, and unfortunately Grimshaw hasn't played well under these circumstances. I hope He can slightly improve, for sure. At the moment, it's not an improvement compared to Hazard, and definitely not compared to Cooper, where you can see he was one of the best. And instead, what he does bring to the table that last year we were lacking, and that probably Rooney is going to need, is his accuracy with long passes and launches. When I say launches, I mean long goalkeeping passes from long goal kicks. And I think that's the main reason, together with the goals prevented, which is really good. I mean, his stats are really good, especially considering the past years. I think that's the main reason why he was selected. Of course, then considering also all the other out of the field, let's say, circumstances like the prices, the wage that he asks, and this other stuff that we are not able to know at this stage. But I think these are the stats that made his evaluation so high. Yes, the first match he played was a difficult one. He started with a very bad mistake, which usually, this is something I want to stress. Usually, bad mistakes for a goalkeeper kind of tend to influence the performance in the game, and sometimes even in the games after. I guess everybody remember Karius from Liverpool in the final of the Champions League. That's like this example to the maximum that can come up to my mind, but not to that extent. In general, even limited to the game, it can really affect the behavior of a keeper. And instead, he proved to be he proved to have a solid character, and he proved to be possibly the man of the match, because he prevented, despite the goals that he allowed, but he couldn't do much except on the first mistake. Considering the other goals that he prevented, it was for me the man of the match. And I think that from there he can just prove to be better. He has some potential. He can improve. If you ask me, as a final thought about him, is he an improvement on Hazard? With all due respect to Hazard, which I do rate, and I think he didn't deserve all the criticism that he got the past season. He is an improvement. He is an improvement compared to Cooper. At the moment, no. He is maybe for the style of playing that Wayne is gonna make us play. But overall, at the moment, maybe it's a slight step back that could be filled in the future. Of course, Cooper, we are talking about a very good keeper, so it's a particular case.
So a ball-playing goalkeeper who's actually also pretty good with his hands. We just got to hope that the defenders will get their heads on the crosses. Thank you for sharing that. Aaron appeared briefly, and now Nick, you're back. I don't know if that means that your time with us is coming to a close, or whether Aaron was just fiddling with the layout. And I can see Sam Down, the People's Champion, is backstage as well, about to come in. Aaron, if you want to, if it's my time to pass the baton to you, or then feel free to move me out, and then you can rearrange the other guests as you wish. But otherwise, I'll carry on until further notice. So we've got less than an hour left until the deadline of the transfer window, and then. So was it 55 minutes exactly? And there's over 5,000 of you watching. Thank you ever so much for joining us again. Please like, subscribe, and all the other things that Aaron normally says. I'm sure you can remember it by rote if you're a regular viewer or listener. So is there going to be one more coming in? What's our gut feeling? There was like Nick said, there was talk from in the nose of potentially one more midfielder or one more English player at least coming in. The fake in the know account spreading rumors that Baidu is potentially signing. I think everyone's so keen to believe that's been doing the rounds. But do we £10 on Sam sitting now? Do we think there's any chance of someone else coming in the last hour? What do we think? Adam, what do you think?
I think we're probably trying. Well, one, because I want to hope we're trying, and I like to build myself up into a false sense of security. But second, I mean, this time last year, I'd never even heard of Mustafa Bundu, and he joined, I think, with about 25 minutes to go. So I think it's very possible. I remember everything kind of calmed down last year with about 15 minutes to go when Chris Errington put out the tweet saying that Argyle's business is supposedly done. That's not happened yet. We usually do hear something along those lines. So I would imagine, or maybe I'd just like to imagine, that we're trying. 50 minutes left, anything can happen.
We wouldn't be football fans if we just gave it up, would we? Nick, what do you think? And let's say if we do get someone, what position do you think we're filling?
I would have thought we'd have enough people are tweeting the admin saying, "Can I go to bed?" Well, it's not a "Can I go to bed?" It's "Is there anything else that's going to happen?" And very often clubs respond to that to indicate whether they're done or not. There's obviously the infamous, was it Leeds? The Leeds case of like, "Don't go to bed yet," and then they just announced that what was it? A bit part player had been told like, "Okay, now we're done." So that's I suppose what we're all afraid of. So maybe there's another outgoing. There have been some very strong rumours. Again, the In the Knows have had an awful transfer window, but there are some who are very sure that Callum Wright has gone, and equally some other people pointing out that they saw him walking his dog or something like that. It sounds implausible, but yeah, I'm led to believe he does actually have a dog that he takes on walks.
But we know he does from the Foster era, don't we? Where it was very prominent that at 3 p.m. on match days we were seeing pictures of him walking his dog.
Gotcha. Yeah. I was going to say I thought we knew he did anyhow. So I don't know. Maybe there's an outgoing still to come. The hope I'm clinging to, like I say, is that the account, the only one that's really the only In the Know account that's come out with any kind of credit, because they got Obafemi when I hadn't seen anyone else really talking about it. Aaron's heavily hinted that he knew, but should have said something, or maybe I can't remember if Aaron said it or someone said that they knew anyway. The fact that they seem to be quite sure that there's an English player in for a medical. Maybe there's another one. My outside shout on that, obviously, Gelhardt's potentially one, so we've been linked to him, but I have no idea how accurate that Leeds count is. My outside shout was Alfie Devine. It's my understanding that Argyle had a quite good go at trying to get him back. They were quite vocal about it at the start of the window.
Yeah,
I've heard musings throughout from various people who occasionally get snippets of information that Argyle were trying to go for Devine. And today it was announced that a move to Birmingham had fallen through. So I'm kind of putting those pieces together and thinking, okay, we kind of need, I think we're both in agreement, aren't we, that we want another midfielder.
Yeah.
Specifically one, well, ideally a defensive mid, but if it's going to be a midfielder, someone who can also cover attacking mid, could that be Alfie Devine? That's just putting two and two together with nothing else really, just a series of different things, but it could be absolutely nothing. I'd say right now, more likely nothing happens. I feel very confident it's not Baidu though. I feel very confident right now. It's not. Those rumors are absolute nonsense.
There's that Nick positivity we know and love.
But it's been proved that account is just a stock image, right?
Yeah, no, you're right.
It looks very fake. I was pretty sure we did this fake.
It's amazing what people will credit when they want to believe it, isn't it?
Yeah.
What about you, Alberto? What's your gut feeling? Do you think we might get another one in? And if so, I was asking the other guys earlier where they think the holes in the squad are. Where's the one position you'd like to plug if we do get someone?
Well, if I can say first, I'd rather stress that I am more happy to have signed Hajj rather than this Baidu that everybody was hoping for. Because I briefly looked at their performances and their stats from the past season, and if I had to pick one between the two, I would have probably put my money on Hajj. So I'm more than happy that he arrived. Regarding the position that we need to strengthen, quite a lot. I understand that we're starting from one of the lowest budgets in the league, and that the goal is to stay up. Well, it's difficult to pick just one. I'm more than happy to, in the way we have filled our wings. I mean, I see these days Morgan Whitaker a bit out of the game still. He's not as involved as last year, which kind of worries me, because the goals like the one against QPR, they're not going to come every Saturday. Sorry.
Yeah.
Or every second Saturday either. So I do hope we kind of find the key to make this team play in a more constructive way. On the other hand, there's Sissoko, and I'm really impressed with him. I love the fact that the way he creates an advantage in numbers with his dribbling skills. His amazing dribbling skills. So I'm quite happy on the wings. Well, on the right wing back, I would like to see this Such from Hungary, how he play. I think we got a quite good lad in general. I have the utmost respect for our captain Edwards, but I just maybe don't think he can play all the games as a starting regular in the Championship. He's able to help for sure, but maybe I would have strengthened our defensive system there.
Now I've just asked you all to imagine. Apparently, Chris Errington has put on his live blog that we're into the final hour. The 11 p.m. transfer deadline is fast approaching, and I'm not expecting any more business from Argyle tonight, in or out. So it seems that maybe if there was
I was mentioning from earlier.
Sorry?
It's almost like I manifested it by saying it hasn't arrived yet, and here we are. So apologies, everyone. But yeah, that does sound like it's going to be a lot unless anything dramatic happens.
Yeah, possibly there was an inquiry after someone like an Alfie Devine or something, that because of the falling through of the move to Birmingham. But the speculation was nice, but it appears. I mean, we might yet be surprised. They might have fobbed off Chris Errington just because they want a blockbuster Twitter announcement. But that appears to be. Sorry to have interrupted you there, Alberto. But
No. I was basically finishing because then the other place would have been a midfielder, and it has arrived. Offensive prone midfielder like this Hajj that we just secured moments ago. So
you were also. I said earlier you were suggesting that the Danish league is more competitive league to be putting those figures up into, as opposed to the Swedish league doesn't quite have the depth. So it's more impressive that Al Hajj was putting those figures up last season against strong competition each week, effectively.
Yeah, although I hope he left behind his relegation skills.
Yes,
because I would love to avoid a relegation this year. So no, joking apart, yes, in general the Danish First Liga is slightly better than slightly more competitive than the league where Baidu is playing. Although Elfsborg is one of the best teams in that league, and instead Odense just got relegated. So it's there isn't this like huge difference between the two player level. We'll need to see how they adapt to English football, how they adapt to especially the football that our coach will want to play. That I'm really curious to see, because I think that so far we haven't really seen. And then hopefully he will be able to contribute and to increase his value, because that's the goal. I think it's a step forward for his career to come and join Argyle in this moment.
Yeah.
And hopefully he will bring something to the table that we were missing.
Yeah, well, I think we've been missing it for far too long.
Since Azaz left.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it still pains me, but like Azaz last year, he was so fundamental. I think we did a piece also on Argyle Live, where when I was trying to explain like the fundamental role that he had in.
He was involved
Argyle,
in everything, wasn't he? Yeah.
It was much more worth it than those millions that in the end Middlesbrough invested, but of course they had the capability to do so, and well played for them. Then also we had a change in the bench with the coach, so I mean it would all change with Foster. He would probably play it in a very different way, but we're still looking for a replacement for Azaz, and let's hope that we found one.
Yeah, at least one thing didn't happen was Ian Foster ruining Finn Azaz. At least we can be grateful for that small mercy. I think we are going to be rotating some of the squad. Aaron was supposed to be in for me by now, but I'm obviously doing such a good job, or his Chinese is so delicious. One of those two things. I won't, I'll let you decide which is the more likely. It's preventing him from joining us. But I will say goodbye to Adam. I will bid you adieu.
Thank you. Yeah, and we've got another as well in his Norwich start, I believe.
Yeah, he's just usurped Nick in his. It's his.
I'll bring Nick back in a second. I just wanted to do the pass over the baton without cutting.
Oh, awesome! So it's my time to leave. Just as my voice begins to break. So thanks to everyone who joined me tonight. Thank you for all your brilliant contributions. And thank you everyone who's watching along, putting up with me, stepping in. 5,231 of you. Only 15 likes on Facebook. That stinks. Surely more of you are watching on Facebook. Let's have some more of those likes, please. But yeah, thanks everyone for joining us. Sorry we couldn't bring you one final block-busting addition to the squad, but maybe there's hope yet. I see comments about Land Rovers pulling up. Maybe Aaron will take you through and bring you some fantastic news. But from me, thanks ever so much, and I will see you all on the other side of the window.
See you later, mate. Let's bring in Sam down, but before we speak to the man of the hour, Adam, I think it's your time's up, I believe.
It is, yeah. I think the viewers, as we know with the People's Podcast, are going to be thrilled by this substitution. It's nothing personal, Sam, that I'm leaving as soon as you arrive. This is just how it was scheduled, not my choice at all. But appreciate everyone sitting around listening to my views. I hope you enjoyed. And you never know. I've said that there's no more business expected. Errington said it. I think we've all said it. But maybe these guys can manifest a surprise from somewhere in the final 45 minutes. But I'll bid you farewell.
See you later, mate. And then let's bring Nick back in. So we should be back in some sort of order. Sam, as you stood up, I'll put you back at the top. To say I do any prep for pods would be an understatement. This one, I only agreed to it about an hour ago or 2 hours ago, whilst I was on the way to Five-a-Side, and haven't showered. So if I look a bit sweaty, that's why. And as Ben has said, smash the Chinese. Sam, enough about me. Why don't you just give us your initial thoughts on the transfer window whilst I go through and start some questions that have been asked that I can ask you afterwards?
Yeah, certainly. Well, first of all, I want to give my initial thoughts on 5,300 viewers. It's absolutely incredible. Considering all of you watching that this only really happened because I collared Aaron at Watford on Tuesday night and said, we should probably do something for deadline day, shouldn't we? Kind of off the cuff. And now here we are, 3 days later, 5,200 viewers later. And I'm absolutely astonished. It's great to hear all of you listening to us. And hopefully, you never know, the Land Rover will bring us some unexpected joy in the last hour of the window. My reaction, disappointed, I think, that we didn't get Beidou done. I think he looked a really exciting player. I know that Alberto.
We don't know.
No, true. I know that Alberto seems much more keen on Al Hajj, and I get the statistical reasons for that. But I still think with the caliber of the player of the teams that Beidou is being linked with, and the money he's looking at going for, there may be something there. Maybe that the stats don't quite pick up. He does seem to be a very highly sought after player, but happy that Hajj has been done. I think he's got a lot about him. He's only 22, so he has a much higher resale value than they do. I think looking at his clips that have done the rounds, he's a very silky player. He's sort of got not so much the Saz vibes, but maybe more, I hate to say it with who we're playing tomorrow, maybe more Kundal vibes. He can just have a little dance through players, carries the ball forward very nicely. That's just my brief thought from a clip. Nick doesn't look like he agrees, so maybe we'll get his views on Al Hajj in a minute. But I'm just giving a wave to the commenter who, I'll try and get it on my camera, who wants a wave. Al Hajj, I think, could be an exciting signing. The only slight, maybe not red flag with that signing, but the only slight amber flag of that signing would be his lack of goals for an attacking midfielder. But I think his creative stats look to be fantastic. So if he can get 10 to 15 assists a season, it doesn't really matter if he only gets 3 or 4 goals, I guess. So, yeah, obviously the window overall, looking back at Cooper, obviously a shame, but I think we all knew it was coming, and it's, as much as it wasn't a great fee for him, better to lose him for what we did than to lose him in the summer. Whitaker staying, of course, unless something really dramatic happens, definitely increases our chance of survival. I just wonder if we do go down anyway, if we might regret not taking 10 to 12 million was on the table, because it's a great gamble if it pays off. But if we go down anyway and he's half the value, who knows? It may make it a lot harder to get back out of League One. But listen, when he scores goals like he did at QPR, an absolute wonder of a goal, which I still maintain is his finest he's scored for us yet, then who on earth can complain about Morgan Whitaker staying at the club for another year? So mixed feelings. I think overall we've not added enough strength, not enough upgrades, not enough quality where we really need it. But Whitaker staying vastly improves the chance of survival. Hello. Can you still hear me? Okay. You can. Okay. I thought I just heard like a click noise, like the line was going off. Okay. Yeah. What else was I going to say? Al Hajj coming, I think, adds a little bit of that creative spark that we've been missing. Still think we're really lacking a deep lying centre midfielder, though. Really do.
Okay. Nick, you might have to fill me in on what you've already covered. Sam's mentioned, because I wasn't really listening, to be honest, as it's been said, I was just smashing a Chinese, to be honest, and just flashing up comments.
Over 2 hours. How long did it take you? That's not smashing. That's very slow.
Either way, getting some rice into my gullet. Anyway, obviously Morgan Whitaker. Have we covered that? He's staying.
I think we've gone through most players once already, but I mean, there's people who've come and gone, and more importantly, we first podcast that me and Sam have done together in years, because the last couple I've been on, I don't think we've overlapped. So nice to be doing that again. But yeah, I think everyone's obviously dying to hear. I reckon Sam could probably monologue for the rest of the time and no one would complain.
We just all
the thing I'd say was Sam, are you saying Hajj or Haji, like 2 J's or J-I? It sounded like Haji for some of them. But
let me check on Transfermarkt if it's if they have the audio of the name.
I was kind of hedging my bets a bit, to be honest. I'm sure when I hear the announcer said at Home Park tomorrow, and the club, no doubt, as they've done it, they put out some videos, didn't they, on how to pronounce the names of some of the players signed earlier in the summer. So maybe they'll do the same for this new fella. And let's just hope they spell his shirt correctly as well as putting out the videos on how to pronounce his name. Let's hope we don't miss any letters.
We could call him Rami, which is the name so far. So we should be quite sure about it.
Well, we can.
Let's go for Rami for now. I guess. Yeah.
Have we ever had a transfer window in which Janners will struggle as much to pronounce the players that we've signed?
Have we ever
Absolutely
had a
not.
more international squad than this? Because there's so many from nearly Ghana, but not quite. So Nigeria, Zimbabwe, Sweden, Hungary, all the home nations, and Republic of Ireland, Venezuela, Spain. I'm sure there's a couple. Pulsar, Iceland. Like we can make a team and a half of every player being from a different country.
You've basically stolen a tweet that's in my drafts, ready to go, and a piece of merch that's ready to go live once our squad is confirmed. Although we have lost a New Zealander. Have we covered Ben Waine to Manfield?
briefly touched on it. Yeah, I don't think in much detail. I'm wondering how. I think they're meant to be losing their in my opinion, the best player in Davis Keeler-Dunn.
Yeah,
I think I've got that right.
I wouldn't have minded a cheeky bid for him myself, to be honest.
Same. But yeah, I'm wondering. They've also just let out a striker who got about 12 goals from last season, Swan, on the same day. So I'm assuming that's a like for like, one in, one out. But apparently Davis Keeler-Dunn, I'm pretty sure I've got that right. I'm afraid I got the names in the wrong order. Quite important in their creativity. I wonder how it's going to impact them and then potentially Wayne's loan spell. If they're obviously stepping up to higher division. They've started well, but obviously he wants chances to be fed to him, and how will that impact that? But fingers crossed for him, he goes and gets 5-10 goals minimum. That'd be ideal.
Yeah, it feels like when like the BBC bring on the wrong person for the segment. That's what I feel like I've walked into here. I'm like, I know nothing. Should we do a bit of a Stoke preview? I can't imagine you've done that.
Just to quickly interject on Wayne and indeed early, I think it's worth noting that which probably we maybe have sort of hinted at, not outright said, that is almost certainly the last we'll see of either of them in an Argyle shirt. They are both, I believe, out of contract at the end of this season, and barring either of them doing incredibly well, I doubt we're going to recall them or indeed extend those contracts. And obviously, if they do incredibly well, they'll probably have other offers anyway. So almost certainly, barring any very surprising circumstances, we won't see either of those two play for Argyle again. So I would would just give a brief assessment on those two. I don't think it's ever really quite worked out for Ben Wayne the way that we might have hoped it was, and he was that very exciting signing coming in that sort of end of 2022 going into New Year, and he was traded around on New Year's Day. He's had some moments, but I think just for the championship level, a little bit lacking in a few areas. The Big Bang, interesting name, has asked, Sam, your brain works incredibly. What do you have for actually that means have for tea on 12th of the 3rd, 2012? Well, that would have been my first year at uni, so probably pot noodle, supermarket pizza, something of that description. Thank you for the question. Keep them coming.
Who did we play?
The nearest game we played to that day would have, I believe, well, it would have. I know we played on the 17th of March, as that was the same day that obviously Fabrice Mamba had his heart attack in the evening game. So I remember that quite distinctly. So on the 10th, so that would have been the 10th of March, would have been a Saturday. I think that was when we played 10th of March. I think we played possibly Rotherham away 10th of March 2012.
Well, I think we played.
I think we lost 1-0. We played them at home first half of that season. We lost 4-1 to them in our first home game, Nick. So we played them at home first half of the season.
Oh, I think
so we definitely played them at
season. I'm not sure.
I think you are. Yeah, I think you are. So the 11-12 season.
March the 10th, we lost 1-0 away to Rotherham. My God.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Madness. That's nearly a database. 5,500 people watching you do that.
Yeah, going back to Saxon early.
I'm quietly typing away.
No, hands free. And going back to Saxon early as well. Again, incredibly bad luck with injuries more than anything. He had a pretty decent game that game at Watford before he got a season-long injury, and I think got injured again in pre-season. It just never found a way in. He was injured for the whole of his loan spell with Wickham. I think Nigel Longvike took him out in training, didn't he? The irony of that, of all people. So I really hope he smashes it at Lincoln, and I hope that Wayne smashes it at Mansfield as well. I don't think we're going to see either of them play for Argyle again, but I want to say that about both of them, even though it's not quite worked out for them, they did both make positive contributions in the second half of that title-winning season. Ben Wayne, that goal at Morecambe, that the away end, the injuries picked up, and that celebration will live long in the memory. Incredible moment, and perhaps less vociferous celebrations, but no less an important win, was Saxon Early's winner at Oxford on his debut, in fact. He was first start anyway. So two winners that got us points that gave us our 101 points tally and our best season ever. So thank you very much to both of them. And I really hope that both of them, it does work out. Maybe it's not completely goodbye. Ben Wayne could score 20 goals in the first half of the season, and we recall him midway through like we did Jeff Cott, of course, in 2020. That could happen, but I think it's unlikely. So that's my thoughts on those two. And now that I've got that off my chest, we'll let Aaron go back to the Stoke preview, unless we hear any breaking news, of course.
No, well, we don't know if there is going to be any breaking news. There are apparently, Brandon's telling me that people stood outside the ground, by the way. I don't know how you know that, Brandon, but
That's so you know you're a big club, isn't it? When you have people stood outside the ground and you have people analyzing metadata and you have people doing flight tracking, that's when you know we've made it. That's going to be the downside if we go back to League One. We're not going to have any of that stuff in League One, are we?
We are a massive club, and I think we should support the campaign to reopen Plymouth Airport so we can get some more signings, some more private jets on flight radar 24/7. That would be my aims for this coming 12 months. Obviously, Stoke. Stoke. I don't like talking about Stoke. I feel like we talk about Stoke far too much, not just on this pod, but as a fan base. Nick, Alberto, sorry, we'll go to you. Any initial thoughts on tomorrow? The big one.
Well, I haven't analyzed through data the opponent. I didn't do any preview, so I'm just talking from the fan point of view. From a fan point of view, well, I would like to be more optimistic than what I am, but from what I've seen so far, we are still struggling to gel as a team. I don't really see patterns of play that can bring to a positive output. We are suffering too much. We are quite weak defensively. We are good at shot stopping, but after a while that you allow shots, you sooner or later get the goals. And the unlucky part is that their manager, which I'm not going to name, knows us pretty well. And although we are a different team, he still does know a lot of the players and their pros and their cons. And I bet he will know how to exploit the cons, especially. It's an home game, so it's an home game, right? We have the ground advantage. Or we are away at Stoke. Sorry,
we're home.
Guys.
Yeah,
we're playing at home park, right? Yeah. So yeah, we have that. But so far this season, I think we need to still get our head around this. I think the gaffer still has to find his good formula for the team. We're a bit back. They are not in a good form either. But unfortunately, I'm not very positive for the match. I hope for a draw. I wish, of course, that we win the game, but especially considering that Schumacher is there, and it would be nice to win the game. But for what I've seen so far, of course, the last incomings still to gel with the team, but the whole team has still to find its balance. Let's say we are lacking balance at the moment. But then again, football is a game of luck sometimes. So why not? Why not hoping for a good output?
Yeah, Nick. Before I looked at the running order and I realised that the other Nick is due to take over from you, and that you've done a 2-hour stint already, and I didn't realise that you weren't doing a 3-hour. Before you go, is there anything you want to add on the transfer window as a whole, or on tomorrow, or on anything really? Like I said, I've prepared nothing, so ramble away.
Yeah, I'd say 3 things pretty briefly. One, I really hope we get the win, even if we're not playing well. We know home park can make an impact. We weren't that far away from beating Hull. We didn't really deserve to beat them, but I mean, that's not really how the championship works. So, sometimes you get those lucky wins at the right time. So I just hope we get that win to get off the mark, because we've all seen the fixtures that are coming up after the international break, and that looks pretty difficult. So hopefully we just get that done. It's a shame that Hajj won't be able to play. Argyle confirmed that he joined too late to be eligible. That's not surprising, that we all expected it. So I suppose that's one thing on Stoke. Just how we play, getting the win's quite important, I'd say, because otherwise it could drag on 3, 4, 5 more games given the opposition. 2, my God, I hope we don't sign Ravel Morrison. I really don't. There's been rumours going around. Obviously, we can sign him as a free agent outside the window. that's not what I think we should be doing personally.
That is the only question I have prepared, and that's the one I was going to give Sam because I was expecting some sort of monumental meltdown.
My bad. Well, Sam's got the next. Third is, I'll be honest, I'm a little bit disappointed with. Just to quickly throw some numbers out there, last season we spent about 2.5 million at least. I think Halleck might have said 3 million. That might include agents' fees and loan fees, not clear. But in terms of transfer fees, we spent about 2.5 million, a mill apiece on Mumba and Whitaker, and little bits more on Hazard and Bundu, and probably adds up. This season we've actually made a profit if the reported numbers are correct. We've sold Cooper for at least 2 million, but I mean that 2 mil there. And with that, we've spent about 600,000, up to 600,000 is rumored on Grimshaw, up to about 500,000 on Such, up to 800,000 on Hajj, and then potentially made some back on. Well, we've made some back as well on Tyreek Wright and Dan Scar. So we've made a profit of potentially up to 500,000. I'm a little bit frustrated that we haven't spent more of that money, particularly since we know that it's rumored there's a 2 mil bid going in for Beidou, shows that there was a bit more money there. I'm a bit frustrated that we've almost run the clock out so much that we've run out of the opportunity to spend the money. That's a bit frustrating. And even though we get to now spend that in January, that's 6 months of potentially missing that player, unless there's going to be some kind of shock late announcement. So yeah, those are my 3 closing thoughts, but fingers crossed for tomorrow.
So yeah, cheers, Nick.
Can I add just a little thing?
Yeah, really quickly. I'll come back to you, Alberto.
Sorry.
Is it at Argyle _? How
Argyle _analyst. I'm not fussed about that. But yeah, Argyle analyst.
Don't follow him then.
Just look at hashtag PFC. I mean, I've been very active on there because this is the first time we've ever had such an important piece of transfer business to do on deadline day. Usually it's like a signing or two, if anything, not the player been waiting for 8 months. So yeah.
Absolutely. Cheers, mate. I'll swap you out, and then we'll. Whilst I'm doing that, Alberto, if you want to, whatever you were going to add there.
Sorry. Just quickly. Let's see the positive of what he just said. I mean, having money for the transfer window in January could be potentially a way to save the season, because if something goes bad from now till December, you still have time to kind of fix it. And you still have the potential to do that. If we did invest all the money now and we went all in now, maybe then it would be more difficult to, let's say, put the team back online. So let's try to take the positive from the not too much investing, let's say, in this transfer window, and let's hope that also we don't need too much investment because the season is going well later on.
Hopefully. And it also leaves a little bit in reserve for should we need to make any panic signings in January too. But cheers, Alberto. Appreciate that. How can people find you?
Well, they can find me on Twitter, but my account is at LAUCE44. I will provide some more in-depth analysis regarding Plymouth this season with the other lads. So you will find me here as well on Argyle Live. It's been a pleasure to be with you tonight.
Cheers,
and come on, you Greens, as always.
Cheers, Alberto. Appreciate that. I'm going to drop you off the screen. I can't remember who's coming back in. Let's just put Adam in. Ben's not connected, apparently. So here he is. Nick of PAFC Displays.
Good evening.
Before we go any further, you said today that, well, you previously said no more current players are going to be adorning flags at home park, but
correct, because they seem to leave. They seem to leave and leave us with flags that are massive and quite fairly not massively expensive, but expensive enough, not able to use until they retire in 20, 30 years time. So yeah, we did say that, and then we had a conversation today.
Yeah, well, we'll leave that until it's officially confirmed. But obviously, Morgan Whitaker stays. That's nearly as better than any signing we could have announced, really, isn't it? Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's important. I think that was one of the most important bits of business we've had this summer. I mean, it just amazes me that how many clubs he's linked with and the size of those clubs as well. I mean, even back in January with Lazio coming in, you think, how many times have we sat there and we've had players like that and we've gone, yeah, they're gone, and they go, they just walk. And 9 times out of 10 they leave for next to nothing as well. This kid's shown incredible loyalty to us. All right, the fees that are being demanded, I'm glad the club need to take a lot of credit as well, because the club is standing firm on their valuation of Morgan as well, which is fantastic, and knocking clubs back that are offering, let's face it, big money for what we would perceive as a transfer fee for one of our players. So the club and the player both have to take a lot of credit, and I'm for one really, really pleased that we've managed to get that bit of our deadline day business sorted, and relatively early within the day as well, because there was always that option, you know, it could have dragged on until 11 o'clock tonight, but I'm glad that the club managed to get that sorted, and they put that, or the club didn't put the statement out, but it leaked out that Morgan wasn't going anywhere, which was, you know, for me really, really pleasing.
Yeah, I think as I've mentioned several times, I don't need to mention it enough, I've done no prep. So I've starred a few questions. I think we're just going to go through those. Adam, as you're back, Harrison, PAFC, will Burnley try again for Morgan in January? I can imagine you don't know the answer to that, but would you be?
No, I'm not in the know for sure, but it wouldn't come as a surprise. Although equally, it wouldn't come as a surprise to me if we chased Beidou again in January in this very similar way that we chased Ben Waine in January after missing out in the summer. I mean, a lot can change between now and January. We're in a situation right now where we're at the very early stage of the season, only on a couple of points. Burnley looking like we're going to be at separate ends of the table. Who knows whether that will still be the case in January? We may well end up being a more attractive prospect than Burnley. I mean, they look in many ways a little bit of a mess. The fact that they've made 100 million in sales, 100 million plus in sales, and yet they're still making loan to buy offers for players across the Championship. It doesn't strike me as the sort of club who have planned forward very well. So it wouldn't surprise me if they come back in, but at the same time, I think holding on to him right now has been really key, and the fact that we've knocked them back, and the fact that the player himself, by all accounts, has knocked them back, may put them off in January, because it is, and I agree with what Nick said there with regards to the fact that it is possibly our most important business. I mean, you can make a lot of comments about this transfer window, as we've done for the last 2 hours this evening. But if you're selling your best player on deadline day, you're doing the transfer window wrong. And we've not done that. We've held firm. The players held firm, and we're here now. So plenty can change. It wouldn't surprise me if Burnley were back in for him from January. Quite honestly, it wouldn't surprise me if once again a number of clubs were back in January. We know the amount of interest there has been in Morgan Whitaker across the whole year that has seemingly been knocked back. So the saga isn't over forever, but touch wood, it's over for today, and that's important.
Yeah, Sam, obviously, Adam mentions the loans with options to buy and obligations to buy. It's just a little bit insulting, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, at least the obligation to buy is a guaranteed offer of money. The fact that they even went in there with an option to buy was staggering. I mean, don't get me wrong, I still wouldn't have accepted an obligation to buy unless it was considerably in the 8 figures. I think I might have accepted a little lower than that if it was an upfront offer, because then we might see some of the cash in time for January. But I think obligation to buy, I wouldn't have accepted unless it was a very substantial 8-figure bid. Option to buy, I would have laughed out the building, and I think Argyle did laugh it out the building based on what Rooney said in this press conference, and quite rightly so. It's a ridiculous offer to think they can come in with an option to buy, because if they don't go up, and obviously or even if they do go up and they choose not to take the option, then what on earth do we get out of that? We just get our best player off the books for 1 year of a 4-year contract and no financial gain for it, barring a paltry loan fee. The fact that they even thought that was
they're almost less likely to Joe. They're almost less likely to trigger that option to buy if they go up, right? Because they'll be wanting
exactly, because he probably wouldn't be quite as good for that league. Yeah, exactly. So it was. I know you don't start with your best offer. Everyone in any sort of business knows that, but you also don't start with an insulting offer, right? It's like when you're watching The Apprentice and you have these people come in and they have the buying task, but they have to buy an item and it's a £300 item, and they say, "Can I have it for 20 quid?" And they always get told off when they do it, because yes, you start low, but you don't start insultingly low, and that's clearly what happened there. There's a few people in our comments, by the way, saying that something might be happening at Argyle, people moving in the direction of the club shop. We'll see. Could just be people having us on. There's someone in the comments who PAFC King is really keen for a Rory Fallon stat. And I suppose the obvious one is that he's our most southern-born player of all time, of course, in the south of New Zealand, born south of Ben Waine, I believe. Obviously, our only New Zealand player since Ben Waine, and the only player, I think, to have represented Argyle as an Argyle player at a World Cup. Certainly had players who've played for us, then gone on to play at World Cup. Certainly had players who've played for us after playing at World Cup. So I think he's the only one to play for us at a World Cup as an active player, I believe, Rory Fallon. And in fact, he scored the winner for New Zealand against Bahrain that got New Zealand to the World Cup. Scored that one in November 2009.
Yeah, I think you're going to give us
that's nice, PFC King.
About. But yeah, okay, fine, all right. I thought we all knew that. Any other deadline day facts? Harrison Hicks.
I don't know about deadline day facts, but I don't think we've ever really signed a player on deadline day, unless I'm missing anyone obvious who's turned out to be a great signing, which perhaps doesn't bode well for our the poor old Mr. El Hajj or El Hajj or however I'm saying it. I'm just trying to think. We had Lino Sousa last year, who, despite a fantastic announcement video, was a very underwhelming signing. Bundu the year before. Well, we'll always have that goal against Leicester, but apart from that, hasn't really set the world alight. Who else have we had on deadline day? We had Jim Patterson, who I thought was a bit of a cult hero, but wasn't really fit enough for the Championship. I quite liked him as well, but you couldn't really say he was a success.
He lived in Tavistock, and I used to see him at Tavistock Library after school when I used to go there to use their computers.
Oh, there we go. Oh, really Ryan Taylor. Ryan Taylor was a deadline day. He was definitely a success. So I'd say Ryan Taylor is probably our most recent deadline day that would be absolutely classed as a successful signing, unless I'm missing anybody, which I don't think I am.
Did we sign Matty Kennedy on the same day, or have I made that up?
I think he was I think he was like the day before, possibly. Because we played at Yeovil that night, didn't we? We played. No, I'm not certain on that. I could be wrong. We played at Yeovil that night, and I think Kennedy played or came off the bench. Which obviously, if he had have signed that night, we wouldn't have been
distinct memory of travelling back from Yeovil on the coach, and Ben Purrington was on his way out, I believe, and I feel like the blow was softened by Kennedy coming in, but maybe that was Taylor coming in, and I'm just imagining the other way around. Either way,
Purrington went to Rotherham, I think, about 3 or 4 days before the end of that window. That window, by the way, is the absolute gold standard transfer window for getting over the line. Pretty much all the players we signed contributed that window. We had Taylor and Sarcevic. They made a huge impact. Kennedy was a bit of a one-trick pony, but my goodness, his one trick was very good. Sokolik came in, and I think was definitely, in my view, a clear upgrade on Jan Songo in the centre-back position. And Nathan Blissett, who was probably the weakest of the five, but still had some very vital goal contributions, such as the equaliser at Wickham and the winner against Crewe that put us on pole position, top of the league going into the final day. Less said about final day, the better. But Nathan Blissett's goal against Crewe gave us that opportunity.
Sam, your knowledge is incredible, mate. That's some stats there. I mean, coming through.
I do my best. I mean, Aaron says we all know it anyway. I'm trying to pull a really good one out about Rory Fallon now, and it's annoying me I'm not able to. I mean, to be fair, if you sort of ask me, who did we play on a certain day and who was the goal scorers, I'd always be able to tell you who we played, and I'd most likely be able to tell you the scorers. But if you ask me to pull a rabbit out of a hat about a random player, I'm not so good. I think I can come up with something, but it's not going to wow you like my knowledge of the games does, in all truth. No. Nick Chadwick's stat from PAFC King. Now, that one I can give you a very good one. Nick Chadwick broke the record for the quickest goal in Argyle history in December 05, with a goal after 11 seconds against Crystal Palace. That record was then broken by Onisor Bazira in March 2012, who put us 1-0 up after 10 seconds. Wimbledon then equalised, and the winning goal was scored by Nick Chadwick in his second spell for the club. How's about that then? I reckon that's a stat that Aaron Wolf said that not everybody knew.
This is currently blokes will sit around talk about random players personified. Absolutely love it.
Check a random player in there. The only deadline day stat that I can really remember is the fact that we lost out to Man United on a deadline day transfer once.
Yeah, Andy Kellett.
Andy Kellett was halfway down the M5, got to Gordano's and was turned around. Was told to go back to Manchester. Go back. So you're going back to Manchester United on loan. And just, that still to this day just is one of those random transfers.
I've never really known a transfer like that, because I think Bolton wanted to sign some lads who United had on loan to improve their team. Yeah, United basically said no, because we want him to get some minutes, but the trouble is we need someone to play left back for us in Premier League 2, and we don't have anyone else.
Correct.
So I think Bolton then said, well, actually, how about this? We'll have him on loan, but we'll recall Andy Kellett from Plymouth and send him to you guys just to fill a spot for them. I've never known of a player literally being signed to fill a spot for a reserve team before. And sadly with Andy Kellett, his career never really reignited. I think his career probably would have actually been better if he had signed for Argyle that night, because he was getting a good space in the team. He just scored that goal at Northampton about a month before, which is to this day one of the best goals I've ever seen an Argyle player score. I'm not going to say the best, because as I said for those of you who were listening after the QPR stream, the best is and will always be Graham Carey at Blackpool, and in my mind that is not up for debate. But Kellett was up there. I've got a comment coming in from Rory saying that I was a big fan of our deadline day signing in January 2021. I can't remember who that was, to be honest. That wasn't Sam Woods, was it? Surely, to goodness. I think it was Sam Woods, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it sounds about right, actually, Sam Woods.
Yeah, well, he scored a lovely back heel against, I think, Wimbledon, but apart from that, was pretty turgid, wasn't he?
Yeah. Okay, so tomorrow sees Steven Schumacher return to Home Park. I don't know if anybody's got any thoughts on what sort of reception he's going to get. Obviously, he didn't have the best one up at the Bet365 or Steal All Your Money Stadium or whatever it's called. Adam, any thoughts on tomorrow?
Mixed reception, I'm anticipating. I think we're going to have a few more, particularly with it being the home crowd rather than the travelling crowd, a few more than we perhaps realise will be appreciative of what Schumacher achieved. As to be fair, we all are, but perhaps not vocally. But yeah, certainly a mixed reception. I think it's one of those where the home park crowd really have a part to play here. We've seen a few games of Wayne Rooney's Plymouth Argyle now and haven't really set the world alight, whichever way you'll see it. But a lot of that can be caveated by the fact that we've had 3 away games now against 3 championship sides, and with Watford in the cup and the 2 in the league, and we still haven't. Ultimately, we still haven't lost at home since the Foster era. So it could well be the case that we as we were when Schumacher was here, and we're just stronger at home. And if we can get that atmosphere going tomorrow, which I'm sure is going to be a feisty one with who's coming down, with a couple of our ex-Lonies in the squad, by the way, it could really push it in our favour. Because I think Stoke as a side, I've not watched them often, obviously, but they strike me as the sort of thing where they can, at their worst, be kind of all style, no substance. Their attack, when it functions, as it did in midweek against Middlesbrough, is great. They put 5 past them. Every player can be interchangeable. It can be brilliant. But they do not have, for me at least, the sort of goal scorer that can propel them up the league, or at least they don't yet. I mean, they may have made some deals in the last hour that I'm not aware of. I certainly won't rule it out. But that's what they lack for me. And if we can stunt that tomorrow and roll our team on with an atmosphere that we know Home Park's capable of producing, I have a bit of confidence. So it will be a mixed reception. And to be honest, I think a poor reception for Schumacher might just spur us on. But we'll see.
Yeah, if we can have a similar atmosphere to when Adam Randall hit the back of the net, but for 90 minutes, that would be incredible. Any thoughts on Shuey's return, Nick?
Pretty much the same as Adam, really. I think it will have a mixed reception. There will be people there that will appreciate what he did for us. I mean, I know I certainly do appreciate the work that he put in the 4.5 years that he was at the club. Yeah, the situation and the way he left was a bit, crap. Could have been handled probably a little bit better by himself, I suppose. But it is what it is. Managers come and go. I think he will come back, and I think, like I say, doing what I do at the club and being around the club quite a bit, I get the privilege to actually see the manager and the training staff for quite a bit, and you get to speak to them quite a fair bit. And so if I do see him tomorrow, I will say hello and ask him how he is and wish him all the best after tomorrow's game. But yeah, like I would say, it needs to be hostile. The ground needs to be hostile. It needs to be loud. That's where we get our home advantage from. I mean, Rooney said it himself. The crowd helped that night when we were 3-1 down against Birmingham. The crowd pulled us through that game and got us back into that game. And I think that's going to be really important this season, given the fact that we are, let's face it, we know we are one of the weaker squads in the division. And our home advantage, our home noise is going to be massive. We need to be there. We need to be loud, and I think we will be tomorrow. I think, given the Schumacher link, it's going to be a bit extra in the crowd there. I think it's not. You got to remember as well. It's not just Schumacher either, is it? It's the other guys that he took with him, and I think that's going to have an added spice to it as well. So yeah, it's going to be loud. It's going to be noisy, and it's what we need. And we need it for 90 minutes. Simple as that.
Yeah, we have 3 minutes until the transfer window slams shut. But will we submit a deal sheet? Who knows? I believe we may have already had to do that. But go on, Sam.
Yeah, I was going to say on Stoke, I think there's a difference between hostile and some of the stuff we saw when he walked out at the Bet365 stadium. I think there'll be a cease and desist letter coming for Aaron in the post after his renaming of it. But look, getting on his back, winding him up, roaring the team on is one thing. Making it hostile, yes. I didn't agree with the Shuey, you're a see you know what, essentially. That to me, for a manager who's given us our best ever season in our
I don't know, Sam.
You don't know. You shut up, Aaron. But for a manager who's given us our best ever season in our history, that to me just didn't, on a personal level, sit right. And look, yes, people pay their money, they travel away, they can do what they like. It's not for me to say, but it just didn't sit quite right. And I'm not saying clap him. I'm not saying any of that. But yes, of course, make it hostile, as Nick just said. But I hope that maybe when he comes, maybe it's still a bit too raw now. It's still less than a year since he left. But I do hope when he comes back in years to come, if he retires, if he comes back to the 50-50 draw, whatever, I think he still has connections down here, very much so. I hope he's remembered for the job he did rather than the way he left. And ultimately, you know what? I'm going to be really controversial. I'm sorry to bring the mood down and get a bit miserable. I kind of think the way he left may have been a bit justified by the business we've done since, with the segment that the previous Nick just did about how we've had so much money come in and not done the best business, not really reinvested. I don't doubt everyone behind the scenes, Mr. Hallett, Parkinson, Mr. Dewslip are working very hard, but championship level is such a tough step up, and the level of money, the level of financial backing, the level of aptitude is so much higher amongst all parties. And I kind of wonder if Schumacher's looked at Stoke, and not only the financial side for him, looked at the opportunity to spend so much more money and actually thought, I back myself, I can get Stoke into the playoffs, but I don't back myself to get Plymouth Argyle into the playoffs. But that's just me having my little miserable moment. I'll get back to positivity, and let's just hope we smash them tomorrow.
Right. Part of that travelling squad will be, I don't know if they've re-signed Luke Cundle yet, but that was in the works. Ashley Phillips. There any of those that you sort of wish we'd gone back in for, or do you think we're actually in a strong position without those? Anybody can.
I'd love us to have signed Luke Cundle. I think he was a proper little player. Again, he gets a bad name because of the circumstances around him leaving. But again, Wolves recalled him. What's he meant to do? He's not. Is he just going to sit there and say, "No, I'm not going on loan to Stoke because I'm not happy about being recalled from Plymouth"? Of course, he's not. And yet, Stoke offered to pay Wolves a much larger percentage of the wage than we were paying Wolves. And unfortunately, and yes, maybe there is an aspect if you wanted to work with a manager he's familiar with, but I can't blame him for that. He was a good player for us the time he was here. Again, of course, if you're going to give him a little boo, a little bit of winding up just to get inside his head and unsettle him, then yeah, sure. But I actually don't think they've signed him, have they? I think it was linked, but it's not actually happened, I don't think.
I think at the very least, he won't be registered in time for tomorrow anyway. So
exactly. Yeah, sure.
Well, it is 11 p.m. on the dot. Nothing out of the club but to confirm whether we have submitted a deal sheet for Big Mike, as I'm going to call him, because I don't want to butcher his last name. Badu. Baidu.
Baidu, I think. Aaron, putting that graphic up on screen is not a good thing to do for people who may have just switched on. That's incredibly that is incredibly naughty. But
well, if you're among it has just flicked over to 6,000 people watching live, which is an absolute madness. Our record is 7,300. So if you want to like, comment, subscribe, and get other people in so we can beat that record. I don't know if we're going to get another 1,300 in now that the window is shut and people like to go to bed. Although I have been told that we send people to sleep, so they might put us on the TV as they tuck themselves in. I don't really know where to go from this. Tomorrow, obviously, new keeper in Dan Grimshaw signed. Where is the starred question? There's a question somewhere. Which keeper starts tomorrow, Nick?
Good question. It's not. I don't think it is so obvious because I mean, both keeper. I mean, like I said, other than the mistake Grimshaw made in the cup game, which was, let's face it, it's a howler. But when a keeper makes a mistake, it inevitably ends in a goal anyway. So, you know, other than that one mistake, I feel he had a really, really good game. Made some solid saves. But at the same time, you've only got to look at Hajj's performance against QPR, and you know, he was superb. He made some really, really good saves in that game. He kept us in it for large spells. It was like the Alamo towards the end of that game the end of the game last week. So, if it was me, who would I go for? If I had to nail my colours to a mast now, I probably would go with Grimshaw. But that's purely because we've spent over £500,000 on a goalkeeper that we brought in. I think we've got to. I think you've got, if that's who you're going to bring in, he's had a really good season last year. Was it 16 or 18 clean sheets last year? You've got to bring him in, haven't you?
I don't do the stats. Don't ask me.
No, I was looking at Sam, but I don't think he's got him off there on the top of his head.
Yeah, sorry, no, I was
for Grimshaw.
I feel like Adam
I know it's Grimshaw. I think it was 18. I think I'm not so sorry. I was just reading some comments about stuff rumored to be happening, but I think it's all just people winding up. I was just seeing if there's anything interesting emerging on my phone, but sorry for being slightly distracted there. Yeah, 18. I think, is that right, Adam?
I have no idea on his clean sheets. I can tell you he prevented 3.69 expected goals on target, but clean sheets, I've got no idea.
Oh, there you go. That's a high. I'm not. You know, that seems like a high percentage. I don't know whether that's high or not, Adam. But you might be able to tell me more on that. But that seems like a pretty solid figure. So for me, I think I probably would go with Grimshaw.
And
I think it will be Hazard. I just think that with Grimshaw, yes, he made those bunch of great saves. I just think with the first goal, the error he made, with being a little bit at times hesitant to come out and collect high balls, as Alberto alluded to in his fantastic detailed analysis earlier with graphs and bar charts and all the rest of it. I think he put all the rest of us to shame with his analysis, apart from Adam, of course, who was on a level pegging with. Going back anyway, I'm drifting off the point. I just think that it's easy to forget with what a good game Grimshaw did have on Tuesday night. And I agree he had a good game. It's easy to forget just what a good game Hazard had at QPR. And as somebody who has not been a great defender of Connor Hazard, as somebody who thinks he's got a lot of flaws to his game generally, I always believe in giving credit where due. If it's a player I don't like very much, I'll gladly admit when they have a good game. If it's a player I love, I'll gladly say when they have a rubbish game. Connor Hazard had a really good game at QPR. Maybe still a couple of crosses he could have claimed but didn't, but by and large, almost flawless game. Even his distribution, which is normally his weak area, was excellent. So I just think as much as Grimshaw made some great saves at Watford, you're looking at a little bit of lack of command of area. You're looking at obviously the error he made for the first goal. Well, of course, nearly passing it out to their striker as well at the end. Adam's done the analysis on him. Everyone else done the analysis on him. Alberto has as well. He clearly who's got a lot of good attributes. But I just think when he had a game that was a good game, but nonetheless quite a flawed game at Watford, I don't think you can bring him in when Hazard had such an excellent game at QPR. So I think that the shirt is Hazard's to lose at the moment. If Hazard has a bit of an iffy game or two, Grimshaw's doing well in training, then yes, Grimshaw will come in for sure. But I think Hazard has got the shirt now, and it's his shirt to lose, is my opinion.
Probably right
Does
there with
anybody
you.
have any
Yeah.
strong thoughts on us not having an out-and-out number 1? I think that's absolute woke nonsense, isn't it? Number 21 and 31. What's all that about?
I
That
hate
over the
it, but
sides
for
of
a
the
very
Italian?
nerdy and specific reason. Is that when I bring the stats together, I've always got them ordered by shirt number, and the keeper's always first. And I've had to rearrange that just to ensure that Michael Cooper's name disappears off my spreadsheet. So, yeah, if in my awful nerdy clearly does not have a life reason for not wanting a number 1, I think is justified.
Yeah,
It's a little bit irritating, but that's just the purist in me, where you like to see 1 to 11 on a football field, which you don't see anymore anyway. But
Interesting fact, I think it's since Grimshaw, because he came through the Man City Academy. He was a big Man City fan, and obviously Edison is number 31. And I think Edison is like a hero of his, so that's why he likes the number, is what I think the Blackpool fan said. Whether that's true or not, or
How
whether
young
that's
is he?
an urban myth, is
Edison to be a
32 at
hero.
Blackpool, didn't he?
I thought he had 31, didn't he? Or could be.
I
Well,
might
maybe
be,
that's
but-
just complete rubbish I've read. Then maybe it's I'm just seeing an urban myth as fact. But well, he's 26 now. But Edison's been at Man City for quite a while now. He not so much a childhood hero, but more somebody who I guess who he aspired to when he was coming up through the Man City Academy.
Maybe. All right, I'll let you off. I don't really know what else I've got left to talk about, really. Obviously, it's been confirmed now the deadline's gone, that Lazio, Stuttgart, Wolverhampton Wanderers, West Ham United, Fulham, Rangers, Celta Vigo, Brentford, Crystal Palace, Ipswich Town, Atalanta, Morgan Whitaker will stay at Plymouth Argyle, which is incredible news. I was sort of expecting when I tweeted that out to have to delete it and get a load of quote tweets from Clarets all over the country. Is that what they're called? Is that their nickname? Yeah, so obviously now the window has slammed shut. I don't know who to go to here, whoever wants it first. I'll go Adam. Is there anywhere in this window that you feel like we're now lacking and we should have strengthened?
I'm always going to say the defensive midfield positions, not necessarily because we're lacking numbers there, but because the shape in the way that it is doesn't have. And I've said it a couple of hours or what feels like weeks ago now on this stream, but the players we've got there just don't seem to fit the system at the moment. I'd have really liked to have brought in another genuine all-rounder centre mid just to top off this squad. That's not to say I don't think this can work the way we have it now. It's just that the shape that they're currently in, or the one that Rooney prefers, probably isn't quite right for the players that we've got. It's my honest view. That's not to say that I'm not pleased in many ways. Bringing Al Hajj in is something that we've needed to do for what, 9 months now, since Spinner's has left. So that's a huge positive that we filled that hole. We came into this this window with a couple of areas that we knew we had been lacking for a very long time. One was a striker. Well, I think we've fixed that now by bringing in Obafemi and Tijani to complement Hardy, and it's allowed Ben Waine to go out on loan, which I've always advocated. The other was in that number 10 since Finners has left, and fingers crossed, we've gone a long way to doing that with Al Hajj. We tackled the main issues in this window, which is good. In an ideal world, we'd have then brought in another defensive midfielder, as I keep calling him, an all-rounder, box-to-box, whatever you want to say, central midfielder, which I think would really top off the squad. And I think having somebody like that alongside, for example, Adam Randall in the middle, would be a lot closer to making this system work than it currently has been. So that's where we're lacking. But again, it's not where we're lacking. We've tackled a lot of issues in this window that we've had for a number of windows now, which is great. And when assessing it as a whole, I'm always cautious of letting recent form cloud the judgment, because I remember back at the end of January, there was a lot of thought that actually we've had quite a decent window here. And with the team we'd just beaten Cardiff, we're in good form under Foster. And when it quickly started to unravel, there was a sense of, oh, actually, yeah, now looking back on it, that January window, we left some gaping holes there. We didn't sign this player. We didn't sign nearly enough experience. So the fact that we're not in great form at the moment, I'm keen to not let that cloud my judgment either in how the window has been, and until I give the squad a little bit more of a chance to come together. But if you're asking me right now, as you literally just did, Aaron, about where the holes are, where we needed just a little bit more, I'm always going to point to that midfield.
Yeah, absolutely. Nick, Daniel Grimshaw of England, Iceland's Victor Poulsen, Hungary's Cornel Such, Nathaniel Ogbeta and Darko Jabi, both of England, Dutchman Ibrahim Sissoko, Nigerian Mohamed Tijani, Irishman Michael Obafemi, and now Swedish Rami Al-Hajj. We'll go with that. We'll pretend that's correct. How are you rating that window out of 10?
It's a tough one, isn't it? Because there's a lot of unknowns there. There's a lot of players there that have played in other leagues, which, you know, I'm not sure the standard, to be honest with you. So I trust the analysis side of the recruitment process that the club have in place. So it's a solid number of players. It's a big turnover. We were expecting that anyway, weren't we? Let's face it. But I think it's been solid. Out of 10, 7, I would say. I think we probably would have needed been, like Adam says, that having that defensive mid brought in, I think would have boosted that probably a little bit more. I'd have been a little bit more content. I'm not panicking with the transfer window that we've had. I think it's been solid. But it's not outstanding. It's solid, which is, you know, for where we are, what we want to achieve this season, I think is adequate, and I think we'll progress well. It's like Adam said, it's a long way to go yet until January, for example. So is seeing how those players are going to gel over the next few weeks and in the next few months is going to be interesting. There's a lot of nationalities there, a lot of, you know, it's very metropolitan, isn't it? So it'd be interesting to see how that goes. I think we could see ourselves getting a new United Colours of Argyle flag coming out somewhere along the lines, because there's quite a few nationalities represented there. So we'll get that going as well. But yeah, I'm a solid 7 out of 10, I would say. I'm relatively content and relatively happy with it. I'd have been a lot more disappointed if we'd lost Morgan. If that had happened, I think you got to then look at the window and go, well, not great losing your best player. But no, solid. I'm quite happy with it. 7 out of 10.
I'm being told in the comments that Al-Hajj is Lebanese, but he's also represented Sweden.
Yeah,
born in Lebanon. Yeah,
Lebanese born, but Lebanese born Swedish citizen. Yeah,
I'm glad so that's good.
Yeah, moved from Lebanon to Sweden at a very young age. So Swedish citizen, represents Sweden, but born in Lebanon.
Aaron, just in case you didn't know, he was born in Lebanon and actually represents Sweden at international level after moving at a young age. I don't know if we've made that clear enough.
I heard he was born in Lebanon and represents Sweden. Yeah. Anyway,
really?
Very interesting comment that I would like to pick up on. With Adam Randall having an interview for this week's Spotlight in the programme, would you say he's better than Norris or Frio? That's a very bold question, isn't it?
I think I'm just going to give you hosting duties one day, Sam. I think this was your idea. You said you were going to host tonight. I should have just let you, to be fair.
You should have, yeah. Were you actually saving that one?
Yeah, it's in the starred. It's in the starred comments. We're going to get onto that in a second. Yeah, we'll ask you that. But before we do that, obviously, if the window has shut and we haven't submitted a deal sheet for anybody, we're gonna stay until about past anyway, just to discuss the rest of the comments that you've got coming in, and because I want to see if we can get to that number to 7,000 people live. So I'm going to drag this out as long as I can. Sam, obviously the window's all but shut. Well, hopefully, we don't know. We'll soon find out. We can still move for free agents. A bit of rumor and speculation today. Richard Francis asks, what's your take on Ravel Morrison? Would you take him at Home Park?
No. No. Goodness me, no. I mean, that would be... I know there's taking a punt in the hope it works out. But no. I mean, blimey. Quite aside from his issues around attitude, behaviour, character, conduct, all the rest of it, And yes, of course, I'm a great believer that people who have done wrong things can reform themselves and can do better in life. And if that's what Ravel Morrison is doing with his life and he is becoming a better person, then that's fantastic. But that does not mean he's an adequate person to play for a championship level club. I mean, he hasn't played a ball. He hasn't kicked the ball, I think, since about 2 years ago. And that was in the MLS, which is probably a weaker league than the one we're in currently. He's not played at championship level for, I think, about 2.5 years, or certainly well over 2 years. He didn't even do that well when he has most recently played. If he's going to go in anywhere and rebuild his career and he's going to knuckle down and sort himself out, it's going to be at a lower level than this. I think League Two is the only level where I'd feel comfortable bringing in Ravel Morrison. I don't think even if he's completely reformed his character, I still don't think he's an anywhere championship level player. So I think that would be a pretty shocking move if we brought him in. But who knows? Maybe he'll come in and he'll prove me wrong. We'll see.
Did I see someone that he's played under Rooney at 2 of the clubs? Was it DC and Derby?
Yeah, Derby and DC. Yeah, so he was most recently at DC, but I don't think he's kicked the ball in any professional football in about 18 months. And I think not at championship level for well over 2 years. So it would be a crazy signing if we brought him in.
I think it would be a massive risk, wouldn't it? Looking at if he's been out of football for that long, I just don't see the benefit in that risk. Personally,
I would agree.
Yeah. Any argument to the contrary there, Adam?
Not particularly. I think I'd say if you do bring him in, a la, let's say, Jose Baxter back in the League Two days, it would have to be on a very short-term deal with a lot of options that favour the club, i.e. we can extend if we want to. It would have to be on a very small wage, so we're not taking much of a risk. I agree with what the lads have said, that I still think the risk is too heavy. But if we do it, we've got to make sure that it's a deal that's entirely in the club's favour, because really, as a player at the minute, that's what he and we would deserve.
Can I just reword? I get it, but I don't think it's just that the risk is too heavy. I think also the reward is too low. What has he shown that he's a good player at championship level in a very long time? If it was a heavy risk and a high reward, I'd be a lot more open to it. But he's not really been good at championship level probably since his QPR days. Really, that's about it. He's had spells there. I'm having a little look at his wiki now just to refresh myself. But he was at Sheffield United. He didn't do much there. He was at Middlesbrough for a spell, didn't do much there. He had a semi-decent half season under Rooney at Derby. Semi-decent, not great. If we considered it, and if he's given his commitment that he's gonna not be a, shall we say, disruptive character, and he's working on himself, he's getting fit, he's tackling his demons. Yeah, even then, the absolute most would be at like a half-season contract till January, with a low basic wage and wage bonuses to bump it up, and then we could look at it again. But I wouldn't even want to do that, to be honest. I think just steer well clear, and if he's going to go anywhere, let him go down to League 1 or 2 and have a go there, because don't see the reward being good enough to justify the risk.
Yeah, what about Dele Alli then? No, I'm joking.
Well, now we're talking, yeah, but he's still contracted to Everton. I think so he'd have to be alone, and well, that's not going to happen unless it's happened 20 minutes ago and we're yet to hear about it. And that would be worth. I think we might get 10k viewers if that gets announced any minute now. But Dele Alli would obviously be a completely different kettle of fish, because I think with him he's had demons, but he's not been such a destructive character himself as Morrison has been, and also he's been a far better player far more recently. So he'd be of course, I'd love Dele Alli, but
Sam's connection.
Obviously not happening.
There we go. Go from one player with an attitude to another without getting shot down for libel. Casually, Adam asks, not sure if it's been mentioned, but Freddie Ladapo has been released from Ipswich. Do you reckon it's worth going back in for him again? He knows how to get promoted out of this league. He's done it once.
Yeah,
done it once when he didn't play.
I think it's one of those, if you asked me this at the very start of the summer before we brought in any strikers, then maybe I'd be convinced on another deal that perhaps suited the club. Right now, no, not for me.
Yeah, agreed. Let's get rid of that one. Sam, you were so keen to answer this one. Why don't you answer it? With Adam Randall having an interview for this week's Spotlight in the programme, would you say he's better than Norris and Freo? I assume it's been combined.
Yeah, my initial thought was, well, hang on a minute, those are two club legends. But actually, I think in a roundabout way, the answer is actually yes, because fitness standards are so much higher now than what they were in the mid-noughties. Obviously, in the level of quality is high because there's so many foreign players in the Premier League. The sort of, I hate to use this phrase, but there's almost a trickle-down effect of English players who are now playing in the Championship, who 15, 20 years ago would have been in the Premier League. So whilst my initial reaction was, come on, I love Adam Randall, we all love Adam Randall, but Norris and Freo, my slightly more considered reaction is that actually, yeah, I think maybe he is, because the game now is so different to the game all those years ago. And actually, whilst Norris was excellent for us in the Championship, Freo, as very good as he was in the third tier, didn't really step up to the Championship, went to Forest and did very little there. And so, you know what, I think there's a chance maybe he is, and hopefully he can give us another moment against Stoke like last year.
Isn't he a different type of player to what Freo and Norris was, though, really?
Yeah, maybe more similar to Norris of the two, because he's a sort of a little Duracell bunny like Norris was. Freo was very much a different kettle of fish. He was sort of quite a flair player, had a lot of late runs into the box in the attacking sense. So, yeah, very different type of player. It is to an extent comparing apples and oranges. But David Norris, I think if he played in this day and age, wouldn't be a winger, he'd be a CM, because for one, the game has generally become more narrower. Teams tend to favour a 4-3-3 rather than a 4-4-2 back in the day. So I think Norris would suit that CM role in a something weird's happening with my screen. I don't know what's happening there. Yeah, the house
Like
very odd.
From
Sam's
Harry
being
Potter.
abducted.
Yeah,
Someone else is
let me
calling
just,
people's podcast.
That's maybe what on earth is happening? Maybe my light's playing up. I don't
Well,
know.
good thing this isn't going out as an audio podcast tomorrow.
Sorry, there's a very weird visual effect on my screen. I've got no idea what it is or what's causing it, but it certainly doesn't half look fascinating. Yeah, maybe
way though.
So yeah, it is. We didn't announce Michael Baydoo, but we have established proof of the existence of ghosts live on our. Seriously, what the heck is that?
I didn't know you lived in Peter Swan's old house.
I mean, it looks like smoke. So either next door neighbour's been smoking, or maybe the house is on fire. Who knows?
Well, maybe
definitely doesn't smell like smoke, and the smoke alarm's not going off. So goodness knows.
Maybe you're just on fire, Sam, with your takes tonight. Some hot takes. Adam Randall coming in. I think I'm just thinking of a 4-3-3 in which you play Freo, Norris, and Randall in the middle. I'd be very happy with that. That
would be quite a, yeah. And anyway, before the ghost intervened, I was saying how Norris would. Thank you, George, for confirming the house is not on fire. Yeah, I'm really intrigued what that was, but anyway, never mind. Moisture on the camera. That might explain it. Yeah, but I've been rabbiting on too much, clearly. Yeah, Rory makes a very fair point there. David Norris only retired this summer, but I guess talking more about him at his absolute peak and his premium was late noughties, early tens at latest.
Right, I think we'll start wrapping this up unless there's anything else you want to mention. I think the only thing for me is now that Morgan Whitaker has stayed, now that he's shown us that relentless loyalty in which he's turned down so many clubs or not even wanted to, and not even forced to move to so many clubs. I think it's time that we slap a nice new contract down in front of him, even if it's the same length, just to reward that loyalty with a few extra quid per month. And even if we chucked in a release clause in there, a figure that we were both happy with. But who's to say that anybody triggers it and he wants to move? He might like Plymouth that much, which is actually mad. I don't remember a player ever showing this much loyalty to a club like Plymouth
or a
Argyle.
player ever so desperate to join us like Baydoo clearly was. And well, it looks like he's not got his way tonight. I think if there was any hint of an extension or a deal sheet, we would have heard about it by now. But maybe in January, maybe we'll go back in for him in January and see how it goes from there.
Well, we'll soon see. And if we need to do another deadline day stream on the 31st of January or whatever the last day, is there 31 days in January? Don't know. Who really cares? The last day, we'll do that as well. I don't know. Should we just have a closing gambit and let people go to bed? Adam, do you want to start? Anything you want to close the window on? If
Yeah.
you close it like a quarter, then Nick can close it, and then Sam.
Okay,
and
yeah,
then-
I'll close the window. Well, I'd probably want to. I was going to say close it a third, but that wouldn't let you have your say, would it? So I will close
No.
it a quarter. I think generally speaking, it helps that I agree with what a lot of what the lads have already said. God, you can tell I'm 3 hours into this. It's one of our most important piece of the business, or definitely our most important business, was keeping Morgan Whitaker. The fact we have managed to do that after everything that was happening pre-summer and the way we ended last season is actually nothing short of a minor miracle. So that's terrific stuff what we've got going on. My takeaways and regrets from the window, I think, have been well covered with the midfield, but we have covered or we have filled the key holes that were in the squad when we first entered the window. I will probably forever regret the fact that with the fee we got for Michael Cooper, I know there's a lot of caveats to that. I know the club's hands were tied, and no one's really to blame here, but I'll probably always feel we've just been a little shortchanged there. But what can you say? What can you do? He's been replaced. We've got money in the bank as well if we need to do something else in January. So I'm mildly satisfied and consider that window a quarter closed.
Go on then, Nick.
Yeah, pretty much echoing what Adam's just said, really. I mean, there's been some really good business that we've done. Like I say, the Whitaker business is obviously clearly the most important piece of business that we've done this year. You don't want to be selling your best players in January, especially on deadline day. In January, in the summer, and you definitely don't want to be selling them on deadline day. So keeping him today was one of the most important things we've done all summer. I do agree also with Adam that possibly feeling a little bit shortchanged with Cooper only going for the 2 million plus the add-ons and percentage. I think that's probably. I do think Sheffield United got themselves a bargain there. I do feel a little bit shortchanged on that, but fingers crossed that money's reinvested. Obviously, we've got a little bit extra from lying around now from the deals we've done post Cooper leaving. Hopefully, that money's reinvested in January. Clearly, it all goes into one pot. They have the playing budget, and the playing budget is what it is, and that includes staff, so the first team staff, and so the coaches and physios and all that lot. It also includes wages. So we don't know what wage increases there are. We don't know what these new players are on. So there's that's taken into consideration as well in terms of what money we've got left in the pot for January. But no, happy. All in all, I can't really be too disappointed. Just hoping now that we gel and we can get some wins on the board starting on Saturday.
Go on then, Sam. Closing gambit. I've got a couple more questions to ask, but they're quick fire ones. Go.
Yeah, I do think we've ultimately not added enough quality in enough areas. Is my honest, truthful opinion. I think we needed more upgrades than we've possibly got. I just think if you look at our starting 11, there's not many who I think would start for a lot of other championship clubs, and I think there are some who wouldn't start for any other championship clubs. And I think depth is also a concern. We've not got many areas where I'm comfortable with our depth. So look, to some extent, that is a consequence of having a lower end budget. I know that Messrs. Hallett and Dewsnip have both made noises to the press that our budget is significantly better this year than last. If that is the case, I think we have either spent it in ways that I can't even imagine, or we are holding a significant amount back, based on the fact we were trying to get Beidou done this evening, or supposedly trying to get Beidou done this evening. I think it is the latter rather than the former. I think we are keeping some back. We were keeping it back for Beidou. Now we're maybe keeping it back for January not by choice, but just because that's how it's played out. So I do think there will absolutely be money to spend in January if we have to. As long as we haven't had to spend it on a new manager by then. Sorry, negative mode over. I think there will be money to spend in January if we have to. But when we heard that it was going to be a bigger budget, that was before Cooper got sold. That was when we were offering Cooper 15k a week, and that would have been reallocated somewhere. I don't know. I just feel that this is not. If you asked me in May, show me this squad, would I be happy ending the transfer window with this squad? Yes, I'm delighted Whitaker's here. Yes, El Hajj might be a very promising signing. I'm not wildly happy with the squad, in truth. And obviously, Rooney has a has a lot to prove. I think, look, I'm not going to be too fickle on him. I'm not going to go for being totally negative his appointment. And, he really won me over. The way he talked about tactics, the way he was in Spain with his dedication, his commitment to the club. I'm not going to then just totally swing completely back the other way. But at the same time, the way we've started the season is a bit of a concern. I think we've created the lowest amount of good chances in the league, lowest XG in the league, highest XGA in the league, and sitting here on 2 points in 3 games. So I'm not wild about how things are playing out, but I'm also, as with anything, really, really happy to be wrong. I don't like being negative about Argyle. If I am negative, it's only because I want things to be better. So let's give it a go. Hajj is obviously not going to have the chance to play tomorrow because he didn't register in time. Let's roll the greens on tomorrow. Hopefully get a win against Schumacher Stoke. Send him back off to Stoke miserable. Put a bit of pressure on him as well because he's not won since the opening day in the league anyway. Yeah, well, we'll see. We'll see. And I just really hope Hajj is the player who is that gap we're missing between midfield and attack. Because I think the midfield play hasn't been too bad. Against Hull, we had some very pretty build-up play. Even against QPR with 10 men, we had some very pretty build-up play. Even at Watford in the first half, we had some pretty build-up play. The second half, less said the better. The second half was shocking. But we have had some times where we've had some good build-up play and just not found the opening. Hopefully, Hajj will help with that. Hopefully, there's a little bit more in the kitty to push Beidou through in January if we need him. And let's see how it plays out. But, yeah. I would say, out of 10, a generous 5. No, I've got to be honest. I think it's a 4. Sorry. I think it's a 4 out of 10.
Oh, well, that's good.
I toyed with a 5, but I think it's a 4.
Okay. That's all right then. Right. Quick questions for tomorrow. How many games was Freddie out for? Was it a 3-game ban?
3-game ban. So he served 1 at Watford, banned for Stoke and Sunderland, back in contention for West Brom.
Brilliant. Okay. And Forshaw's, because it's 2 yellows, there's only 1 game, right? So he's back tomorrow.
Well, he's back in contention. I don't know if he's back. I don't know if I would select him after the way he started the season, but yeah, he is available for selection.
Well, we don't know if you would select him, but we know that Rooney quite likes him. Question for the panel. We'll finish on this cheery note. Do you see us finishing above 3 other teams, and who would you say the teams that would be scrapping for survival? Are we staying up? Let's go back in the same.
Can we do reverse order? Because I want to end up. It won't end on a positive note if it ends with me. Can we do reverse order?
You'll end up on a positive note.
What are we going to do?
I'm suggesting reverse order because I know that the answer I'm going to give isn't a positive one. I'd rather we end on a positive note. I think at the moment my prediction is no, but last season my prediction was no for quite a lot of the second half of the season, and the year before I famously felt we would just miss out to Ipswich and Sheffield Wednesday. So I've been wrong twice. Admittedly, I wasn't wrong with any high degree of confidence. I wasn't being relentlessly negative. I always thought we had a good chance, but on both occasions I thought we would just fall the wrong side of the line. And on both occasions, I was wrong. This season, I do also think we'll be on the wrong side of the line. And I really hope I'm wrong a third time. Teams down there with us, I think, will be probably Oxford. They had quite an exciting start, but I think when all said and done, they'll struggle. Blackburn without Smodics will really struggle. Derby will struggle. Pompey might even struggle. I think Preston will struggle. They've lost a lot of players. They don't look good at all. Paul Heckingbottom does, however, look a very good appointment. So if they're going to be okay, it will be why. Hull have lost a lot of their squad. I think any of those could be down there. I mean, goodness knows, even Luton, who many people tipped for playoffs or even better, but are on 1 point from 4 games, so maybe they'll have a bit of a bad season. Cardiff, I think, will be probably down there in the bottom 8. There are a few teams down there who I expect to pull away. I think Norwich will pull away once they settle under the new manager. I think there's every chance Sheffield Wednesday will pull away. And sorry to John if he's offended listening to that. And I think, and John will be even more offended listening to this. I think Stoke will pull away as well. Hopefully not starting tomorrow. But I think at the minute, my prediction is relegation. I really, really hope I'm wrong. And I hope that Rooney and Rami will get us over the line and push us on up.
Oh, there's a great chant there to the tune of Boris and Badger, isn't there, of Rooney and Rami? Anyway, don't know why that's in my head. So, Nick, Sam said that about 12 teams are going to struggle and all go down, but so are we. Do you think
I said some of them would pull away.
He did say some would pull away, but
yeah,
I do. I think we'll be down there. Do I think we'll go down? Accuse me of having green tints. I don't think we will. I think we will scrape it. I think we will stay up. But I think it will be tighter than it was last year. And
last year was 1 point, mate. So it can't be too much tighter than that.
I mean, when I say tighter than it was last year, I mean I think it will be a lot tighter, as in more teams are going to be more involved. I think going into
I get you.
in the season. It's hard to call at the moment on who's going to be down there. I mean, we've played 3 games. 2 teams have played 4, but we've played 3 games. Transfer window is just closed. Teams are going to need to gel. There's players that are going to need to get together, suss each other out in their teams. I think until you've got 10 games into the league, I don't really think you can look at it and make much of a judgment on who's going to be where and who's going to finish where. I'd love to be asked the same question after 10 games, but I think we'll be okay.
I'm sure we can make that a possibility.
Right, like I say, I think we'll be okay. In terms of people that are going to struggle, like Sam touched on, Blackburn, they've made a lot of signings, but they've lost Schmodix. So they've lost their best player, but they brought in a load of other players. We've kept our best player and added a couple of additions, maybe some quality missing. That may be in our favour against Blackburn. That could be one team that will finish above. So at least we're not coming 24th. But yeah, there's plenty of time yet to understand and see where that situation is going to lie. But I think we'll stay up.
Yeah, Jay Stansfield's been announced at Birmingham City for more money than I think we've ever spent in our whole life.
It's a joke in that league. 10 million in that league is an
absolutely crazy. I mean, blimey, what a player he'll be for League One. He was pretty damn good in the Championship last year.
It is a Nick Chadwick
must really love it there.
Here's a Nick Chadwick stat for you, Sam. Imagine knocking somebody out of a cup and then going to sign for them a couple of days later. Didn't Chadwick do that?
He did indeed. He scored the winning goal at home park. Not the winning goal, actually, they were already 2-1 up. He scored the game sealing goal to put them 3-1 up when Everton came down to home park in the FA Cup third round 2005, and he signed for us a few weeks later. Of course, there is another very famous example of that. A player who scored a hat-trick against us in the League Cup second round in Swansea's 4-1 win against us in 2021 was, of course, Morgan Whitaker. And then obviously admittedly it was a year later in his case rather than a few weeks later, but he then went on to sign for us, and well, the rest is history, as they do say. But yeah, that's the extraordinary. Like, why does he even want to go to League One? He must just really love Birmingham and love their fans, I guess. Well, you say money, but he's on money at Fulham, mate. He's at a Premier League club. He must be on good money at Fulham. But that's maybe.
If they're going to pay £15 million for him with £5 million performance-based add-ons, they have to pay him like he's a £20 million player.
At the end of the day,
is that the final figure? 15 million.
15 million plus 5 million performance add-ons. Apparently.
Where does FFP fit in League One then? Does it not exist? Because that's surely got to be.
It's kind of, it does, but it's sort of easy to wiggle around it with sponsors and that kind of thing. Teams don't get penalised for it. To be fair, one area which the Premier League is genuinely better than the Football League is penalising that kind of stuff, because Everton and Forest got big points deductions. Leicester and Chelsea might well do this season. Who knows what's going to happen with Man City and their 115 charges. But the Premier League is at least making an effort at tackling this kind of blatant rule breaking.
I wonder what that looks like really. If Birmingham don't go up this year as well.
That would be
hilarious.
Yeah, I know.
They don't go up. That could really bite them on the arse.
I'd like to clip us up, but please, for the love of God, stay in League One.
I'll say this for Jay Stansford. I know none of us like him very much, but maybe he just genuinely has the same affection for Birmingham as what Whitaker does for us. Just that absolute love for a certain club, and fair play to him if so, because he can certainly be playing a lot higher if he wants.
Definitely, he's a very good player. I mean, as much as if we have a dislike for him, he has a dislike for us. You've got to accept the fact that he's a very, very talented footballer.
He's all right. He's okay. He's no Morgan Whitaker.
No,
before we go, then quick score predictions from tomorrow, and then we'll just click end stream. Adam,
I am going to stick with what I wrote yesterday and say that the home park crowd will sing us over the line to a 2-1 win.
Nick.
3-1 win.
Sam, 2-0 loss, I can imagine.
I'm going to go for a result which I think will not do a lot to settle the nerves at either club. And a 1-1 draw, exactly.
Okay, I'll go. Oh God, I can't remember what I submitted in the predictions league. Head versus heart. I think my heart says like a 2-0 win, and my head says a 2-0 defeat. So that's fun. Move on from that. I suppose the last thing is really I see people are submitting their teams for tomorrow, and a lot of them only seem to contain one new signing, if you want to call him that. If you want to discount JB from tomorrow's predicted lineup, how many of the new boys start? Don't know who wants that.
Just to quickly say, final stat of the night, a comment coming in from Rory saying Sam loves the 1-1. I do, but that is because it is statistically the most common scoreline in football. And that's my final stat of the night, spelling off the stats.
Is it not 0-0? Because that's how all games start.
Well, it's the most common final scoreline in football. Thank you for the pedantry.
Thank you. Carry on. Don't know.
Oh, was it me? No. How many new boys start? I think not many, really, because I think, unfortunately, the best signing players this summer have not been the signings. I think probably Such has done enough to deserve a start. I think Galloway's had a lot of minutes. He's gone off in the last 2 games. So I'd probably start Such and Gibson with, I guess, Mumba at left back, because not sure about Ogbeta at all, I'm afraid. Edwards right back, Hazard in goal. I would go Hazard, maybe Grimshaw. Randall, I'd go Randall and Houghton, because I do not trust Forshaw at all, I'm afraid. And I'd go Whitaker, JB, and Sissoko, so that would be a second one. Behind, I'm still going to say Hardy. Obafemi, get him to come on. Legs, run at them, 20 minutes to go. So I think just, JB, if we're counting him, Such and Sissoko.
Yeah, I would like to see a world in which Hardy and Obafemi get a run out together at some point, though. That would be great. But I don't think we're ever going to see that in a Rooney system, especially when you didn't want to play TJ and Hardy together, even in pre-season. I think we'll call that a night. Cheers to the 6,500 people that have joined us tonight. A huge thank you to Ben. He's disappeared. He was literally there watching backstage, but he's now disappeared. Huge thanks to Ben, Alberto, Drew, Nick, Adam, Sam, and me for tonight. It's been brilliant. Like I said, 6,500 people is actually insane. I suppose we better do it again in January, and let's hope there's no deal sheet and nothing and gets announced as I click end stream, because I can imagine big Mike Badu gets announced. Let's just put that up there for you all to get excited about. Cheers, guys. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
No worries.
Cheers,
I'm just going to click end. This isn't going up as a pod because I value sleep. So, yeah, if you want to watch it back, watch it on YouTube. Okay, love you, bye.